Okay, I'm unmuting and starting
Yep.
with Karen. I'll start the recording. No one else, I don't think, is online right now.
Okay.
I'll start. Okay, I'm unmuting and starting with Karen.
Oh, no.
I'll start the recording. No one else, I don't think.
Again.
We are on the YouTube somewhere. Let's see. I'm unmuting and starting
Maybe
with
Edge.
Start the recording.
Instead of Chrome, Microsoft Edge, it looks like was open.
Oh, that, this one.
No, the center, the swirly.
Yeah,
That's it.
Mhm.
Dan, you're so smart.
I use a computer once.
I am like in.
We have.
So, I got for you.
I know you got that.
Okay, we have a pretty burly training for you this morning, but that, oh yeah, call the order.
Call me yourself.
Okay, we are gonna call
Welcome
to
to
order the Town of Telluride, Colorado Town Council Retreat. It is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. It is 9:09 AM and we are in the Public Works Conference Room at 1370 West Black Bear Road, as well as online. And a roll call starting to my right.
Dave Henry.
Ashley Von Sprecken.
Ellen 11.
Kristen Permacott.
Maria Stark.
And myself, Teddy Erico. That brings us to agenda item number 1, work sessions, 1A. Communications training with Lindsay Mills.
So we have a pretty burly communications training for you this morning. Just to reiterate, but as we go through this, I really want this to be an open discussion. Please don't hesitate to stop me, ask questions. If you have anything that pops in your mind, just go ahead and interrupt. But we will get started. We are going to be reviewing your roles, responsibilities, guidelines, the communication strategy, our tools, tactics, and some quick tips for council. Discussion overview, we're basically gonna go through principles of communication, communications tactics and tools. And then we'll go through some case studies that have been recently relevant. We're gonna look at some emergency management, crisis communications, some national media, and then some really routine construction communications. And then we'll take a look at some learnings and some key takeaways. The roles and responsibilities of council in communications for the town of Telluride are sixfold. You set policy, you protect the public interest, you appoint leadership, you provide direction, you're one of 7, you make decisions as a council, and you have a 24/7 obligation. The big piece here is that communications plays a role in every single element of what you are doing. The main focus, I think, on today is that you have a 24/7 obligation to your constituents to act responsibly, to be responsible town council people. And that includes, unfortunately for you all, when you're out to dinner, when you're out at the bars, when you're trying to have a leisure, things like that, when you're trying to have a leisurely ski day. This community is tight knit and you have more exposure than any council in any major city. So it's really important that we look at that through that 24/7 obligation lens as we go through what our communications can look like and what your roles are as council people. So when thinking about your roles, the role of town council, the role of the town manager, and the role of the town attorney are 3 different things. But when you are working with town staff, the town manager and the town attorney are your 2 main points of contact. So the elected officials are accountable to all residents. The town manager and the town attorney are appointed and accountable to council. Council will set policy and direction for long-term goals. The town manager will implement that policy with staff oversight, manages day-to-day operations, and the town attorney ensures compliance with charter, municipal code, and state and federal law. Council will approve an annual budget after a town manager and staff prepare, and the town attorney will represent the town in litigation, negotiations, claims, and any other legal matters surrounding that. The town council will govern the organization while the town manager manages the organization and the town attorney guides the organization. Establishing financial and other policies is definitely your role, but the town manager will implement financial and other policies with the assistance of town staff. And the town attorney will be in charge of drafting and reviewing ordinances, resolutions, regulations, and contracts, along with his office team. You will all manage your council meetings, especially as the role of the mayor. Town manager will set the agenda with mayor and council, providing complete information through a packet. The town attorney will advise council, boards and commissions on the legality of the ordinances, policies and actions discussed there within any meeting. Any questions on the separation of roles? Pretty clear? Cool. So big focus today with communications being in the manager's office, how council specifically works with the town manager and as that pertains to staff as well. So when you're bringing new issues forward, this is a good time to come to the manager and you can do that through the mayor or directly as a council person. Ideally, we're not looking at you all acting as individual members alone, but acting as a council together to put anything into policy. When it comes to bringing new issues to light, that is something that you can do individually and independently. Independent direction from one member creates confusion, while pulling resources from competing directions and also then putting the manager and council in an impossible position. So when you're talking about regulatory, make sure it comes to a regulatory meeting rather than coming to a single discussion asking for change. Does that make sense? Providing guidance and direction. The mayor and manager meet regularly to align on priorities. Council members will meet with the manager semi-regularly for updates and input. Formal guidance, the kind that really changes direction or commits town resources, requires formal action by a majority of council. One voice is not the council's voice. Strategic planning is another big piece of how you're going to be working with the town manager. One of the most important things council and manager do together is develop the town's priorities. This is our goals and objectives guiding documents. This is where your role is the most powerful, setting the vision, establishing goals, and giving the manager a clear mandate to execute. And this is typically based on data from the year before. What projects did we finish? What projects are ahead? What does the community want out of a community survey per se? What are you hearing from the community as public servants? Yeah, Kristen.
I noticed that there are about 80 something goals and objectives on the list. Do we have a priority list of those or a timeline of those? How do we tackle those?
So
There's a lot.
when we set our goals and objectives, we do that during the budget process. We do quarterly updates and we have a dashboard to kind of track where we're tracking for those goals and objectives.
Is that something we could look at, the dashboard, to see?
So we do a quarterly update to council. So
Okay.
you will get that at the end of the first quarter. So most likely the April 28th meeting.
Okay.
It's after spring break, so it might be the next meeting after that, but that would be the first quarter.
But that dashboard is live.
It's always
live.
It's live, but the
like-
first update, like, it's not gonna say anything right
Staff
now,
update.
it's that way
Yeah.
update quarterly.
Yeah.
But.
But you can always visit it.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
you wanna, yeah.
Yeah.
And they are posted online
Yeah,
at TOT goals.
Yep. The priority is set like that, those are our actions for the year. So, there is no ranking of that. Council has determined that that is what our actions or focuses for the year.
Some things are time sensitive
Yeah.
or like higher priority than other things.
Yeah. And we discussed that, we work through from staff bandwidth and through council of like what we're focusing on. A lot of them are naturally prioritized, but we can get that direction if needed from council, like, hey, you need to be doing this sooner or
Okay.
whatnot, but you should get very familiar with those goals and objectives
Mhm.
are. If you have any questions on those, let me know.
Thank you.
And that is why I often do mention, if something is starting to go outside of the goals and objectives, I'll say, well, that's not a goal and objective this year. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be, or we can't be talking about it. It just means that there's most likely a give and take conversation to that. Because there's only a certain amount of bandwidth for staff or a certain amount of, most importantly, budget allocation or along those lines. So, never take that of like, I'm trying to stop your conversation, but that you just have to understand the value of that strategic planning and how we need to make sure we're fitting within that or keeping that within that conversation, if that makes sense.
Got it.
So as the town's finances may or may not be changing, given like what we see, like the snow and such. At what point do we start looking at any adjustments we might need to make to the budget?
Yeah, so a good point. So we do mid-year budget adjustments. If it is in a crisis scenario, so we have that I shared to council earlier, when we feel, our finances are in certain, situations where it could be more threatening than others. then we can have those talks sooner, but a lot of those conversations happen mid-year. We haven't had it in a long time where we've had to have conversations of scaling back
Yeah.
any of these. There may be an opportunity this year. We don't know yet. But if so, that might be a appropriate time to have that conversation.
Steve Jordan's gonna save everything.
I know.
No, it's not.
Bruce, more speeches, please.
Okay, so then finally, how council's working with the town manager, when it comes to a chain of command, you're gonna see this theme throughout today's presentation. Council members are not directly engaging with town departments. You're going through the town manager for anything you need to relay to town staff. That'll be to request work to be done, to set priorities, or to provide direction. The manager is your point of contact for every single communication that you need to relay, trickle down to staff.
Is that for a particular reason
Yeah, for why council doesn't direct staff.
or why I can't ask a staff member a question or something like that?
I mean, I'm not saying like you shouldn't do that. It's more helpful to ask the town manager. A lot of times, if you ask a staff member a question, there could be a bigger answer that involves multiple departments, or that person has only a very specific answer that maybe isn't as detailed or broader picture to answer the question more holistically. So in order to get the most complete answer, I think it's usually most successful to bring it to the manager's office.
And there's also some labor, like, rules about like that. We only have 2 employees that we'd have direct, or I guess you kind of, but like, we only have 2 employees where we have direct, like, supervision and control and direction over. It's inappropriate for us to go to other departments, and even like, sometimes even asking questions can be interpreted as giving direction or wanting them to do something. And that's outside of our purview, and we can actually get into really big trouble if it's perceived that we are giving direction to any other staff than the town manager and the town attorney.
And I think-
the chaos.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
would just
and I
be
think
really bad.
Even more so than that, it's. You have hired the town attorney and the town manager. You going around them undermines their authority that you've established for them as leaders in the organization. So maintaining your trust in Zoe and Kevin by directing any direction, questions to them ensures that you're getting all the right answers. You're giving the direction to the right person that is in charge, that you trust to implement any changes that you feel you need.
Right, I was just wondering if there was like a certain situation, because I don't remember this specifically when I was on council before with you, if that was, we weren't allowed to really ask staff questions. I don't remember this from before. You jog my memory?
Yeah, so I would say questions direction. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a
And I agree
clear
with
line
that,
there.
Yeah.
You know, what I would call simple questions or day-to-day questions. You're walking down the street and you see an employee. It's appropriate to say to a public works employee, hey, how's the plowing going this morning after snowfall? It would be inappropriate to say, hey, I noticed the alley west of Galena is chock full of ice and no one can get up it, something like that. That would be inappropriate. Asking questions.
Or go and plow that
Or-
street
So,
and
yeah.
Galena
We
because
did have examples of that.
Yeah.
People have been back
And I-
through that.
True as well.
It could be, because again, so remember we're dealing with this on something else right now. Remember the line, is it within your scope and your authority? Is it something that you as an elected official, it's part of your responsibility to do something? Supervising employees, that's not your responsibility. Then it could even go into an area of what they call willful and wanton. It's so far out of your area of authority that you are reckless in dealing with or directing on that issue. So those 2 triggers, you know, think of, is it part of your, what I call your job responsibilities, your job duties? No, it's not to direct employees. Is it outside of your authority and so far a field of that it becomes willful and wanton?
And I'll just add to that
Mhm.
and more of, manager just, differences as well from, previous managers to me today. It is much helpful for myself and for staff for even some of those questions to come to me. So even if you have a public works director and you're like, hey, why didn't you plow Galena? I noticed it was icy. If you ask me that question, I would now know you have concerns that we haven't plowed Galena. And that's something that I now could flag for me to then understand to look at my staff. And that question could lead to other things that I can understand and broader pieces. And so it's much more helpful for me in managing staff to even understand the questions that you have from a personal standpoint or from getting from the public.
From the public, yeah.
Uh-huh, and so, cause if you did it directly, it could end there, and I would be a missed opportunity for better management of the organization and for town.
And just as a side comment, this is the way all big companies work, boards of directors
Yeah.
only manage the CEO. Same with nonprofits, you don't manage beneath that one central person.
I guess the clarification of questions versus directions.
Yeah.
That's clarified.
And I think it's even helpful for questions.
Yeah,
Just-
consider your tone, consider.
Yeah.
The direction that, and the impression that somebody might be getting.
Why didn't you plow Galena
Yeah.
today?
Yeah.
Why did
It's
this
different
email
than-
into my inbox?
That's- why didn't you plow Galena today?
So rules for a strong council staff relationship, even though your direction is going to go through town manager, and most of your questions should as well. You're gonna have a relationship with town staff. They're gonna be presenting in front of you, they're gonna be sitting, maybe sweating, because they hate public speaking. So really figuring out how to encourage them and ensure that they have comfort in engaging with you is really important. So rule number one, you're gonna work through the chain of command. So you're never giving orders to individual employees. All requests, complaints, and suggestions can be passed through the town manager to make sure that you have good rapport with town staff. It protects staff, it protects you, and ensures nothing falls through the cracks. If you tell someone something that isn't in their purview and they don't get it to the person that is in charge of that, then this could completely fall apart. So giving that information to the town manager ensures it's routed correctly. Redirect resident complaints gracefully. When a resident brings a complaint to you directly, listen courteously, which we know you all do, and then route it through the proper channels. Let them know that you'll pass it along and encourage them to contact the town manager directly or submit public comment anytime to the town clerk. You're not dismissing them, you're making sure their concern gets to the right person and is routed correctly. Third, trust in your partnership with staff. Staff is here to take care of you. Staff genuinely wants council to succeed. You set our goals and objectives for the year, and we want to fulfill those goals and objectives to the best of our capabilities.
Lindsay, one quick question.
Yeah, hit me.
So if, you know, a resident had a complaint, let's just say it, we'll keep it to Galena. You know, every resident has the very quick ability of Googling Public Works Town of Telluride
Yep.
and finding Kyle Beck's email address. I typically tell people, I got no problem if you're courteous and respectful of asking questions to the proper departments for what it is.
Totally aligned.
You know, keep me in the loop or whatever. We were good with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And we're working on, specifically for Galena, we're working on a 311 system that we're hoping to implement by the end of the year this year, but we're simplifying the ways that the public can get in touch with people, so it becomes less of a free text brain dump, if you will, and more of a report and notify. So less of a complaint platform and
Less
more-
subjective.
Yeah, and
Or maybe not.
more,
More
yeah,
objective.
more objective.
Yeah.
And can I just add to that? I think if it's really clear, you can give it to the department head. There are times where a question isn't strictly that clear or for a specific department head. And becomes a bit of a runaround and it ends up to me because it again involves more people. So just, you know, if you're not sure exactly if it's a specific person, you can always just opt for the manager.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, streets is really straightforward. If there's something else, then holler. And for your information, info ad comes directly to me. So we have been trying really hard to kind of reel in our emails as well. So we have overarching department emails that go to a handful of people to make sure that there's eyes on them and that we're responding in an appropriate amount of time. Info ad comes to me so I can route questions to the proper departments or gather the answers. Our phone tree also, if you don't know who you're trying to get in contact, comes to me. So that gives the public a single point of contact that can either have the answer, get them the answer, or connect them with the right person.
And I just wanna add one more thing. This is great, Lindsay. I love your presentation. For.
Section 2.
Yeah.
I have to leave it down there.
Okay, I just wanna hone in on that, staff really does want council to succeed, and that's at council meetings as well. So I really encourage you all to do your homework and read the packets, and if you have questions ahead of time that you want staff to prepare, they're there to make sure that you're successful, especially in those meetings. So just always feel free to do that or ask me ahead of time. And again, like when you see them on the streets, we all get a lot of pressure from the community. So just know that we're on the same team and we're all trying to make everyone successful. So just keep that in mind.
True. Right, so principles of communication. Why communication matters in Telluride. This will be a really quick slide. In a town of our size, news travels incredibly quickly. Social media moves faster than the news, which is also kind of shocking sometimes. Everybody knows personally somebody that's being impacted by every single thing that happens in this town. And small issues as a result can feel really stinking big. Strong communication builds trust. It prevents rumors. It supports safety, protects our credibility as an organization, and shows respect for our residents. How we communicate matters as much as what we're communicating. Our principles of communication, for your information, we strive very hard to be clear, accurate, timely, transparent, calm, and steady. We never speculate. We don't assign blame publicly. We don't react emotionally, and we never overpromise. You'll see that especially in our construction communications. We always say, we're targeting this date for this to be completed. And then usually that's actually a week after our target deadline. But if we don't know yet, we say so. A really, really important thing that I've personally learned over my time in my career is that if I don't know the answer to something, it's okay to say, I'm not sure, but let me find out and I'll get back to you. Or let me connect you with the person that does know for sure. Great, communications principles, nice buttoned up. Communications tactics. So this is gonna be about when council is gonna be looped into things. You're gonna find that you don't have much priority over the public, especially when it comes to emergencies. Level 1, immediate notification will occur within an hour. This is for an active emergency, imminent public safety threat, major accident or incident involving town assets or staff, or if media is already on the scene. This does not mean you're gonna receive all of the information we have at any given time. One of the scenarios we'll go through later is our armed suspect at large. There are times when the marshal's department is under an active investigation or an active pursuit. We can't give you more information than we're going to give to the public, but you may be the first to be notified. And we will make sure you have as much information as we are able to give you as soon as possible in these situations. In this situation, the phone tree goes as follows. The town manager will call the mayor, who can then follow up with all of council, or town manager will start with mayor and then discuss that she will continue calling council. So you will either hear directly from the mayor or the town manager. Okay. Level 2, same day notification. This will be within 4 hours of an incident. Significant constituent complaint going public, unexpected agency, state or federal action, critical infrastructure failure, arrest of a town employee, anything along these lines. Town manager will notify the mayor, and then manager will decide if the council needs briefing. Typically in situations like these, you'll see an FAQ come through, you'll see talking points come through, you'll see an email from me with extra details as soon as we can get those in. Next level is level 3. This is gonna be a next meeting briefing, so we'll talk at the next regular special council meeting. Media inquiry about policy, pending litigation developments, a regulatory notice, anticipated controversy before a scheduled vote. This is when I will definitely send you talking points in advance. If we have something controversial coming up, council will be briefed at the meeting during a work session or something along those lines, whether that's in the manager's report or comment period. And then level 4, routine update. We love these. We target 2 weeks in advance for all notice of these details. And then you'll get regular communications after that. This is ongoing construction updates, permit activity, community events, standard policy implementation, staff performance items. This will be a staff level communication. It'll be included in the council packet if needed. There's no action required from you by any means, except to stay informed and know where the resources are. Okay. Communications tactics for council. When it comes to your tools, these are the pieces you really want to think about. Staying on message, so referring to our approved talking points. If you don't know something, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm very happy to prepare talking points for you on anything, anytime. I have all of staff at my fingertips and can grab talking points from any subject matter expert at any time. Routing through staff. You can direct resident complaints and media requests through Zoe and I. But don't ever route those through individual departments. Department heads are directed in this way as well. Anytime the media reaches out, they send the media directly to me. That gives me an opportunity to schedule an interview with you, should we need to, but it also makes sure that I'm on hand, should you need talking points prepped, should you need any sort of media preparation, if you're gonna be on camera, if you're gonna have an interview on national news, I'm a really good resource. I've prepped a lot of execs for interviews such as that, and I'm very happy to do so for you as well. But I have to be looped in order to do that. Coming prepared, Zoe brought this up, reading all materials before meetings, ask clarifying questions in advance through staff and not at the dais. If you blindside staff at the dais, they aren't gonna have the answers that you're gonna wanna hear. People put on the spot sometimes say things that are quick and not necessarily well informed. So the more prepared our staff can come to the meeting, the better informed you're gonna be in the end to make the decisions that you need to.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So certainly it's not ever my intent to put somebody on the spot or, ask gotcha questions.
Sure.
And so, for example, when Delaney was presenting on, vacancies and stuff.
Mhm.
Like I asked, what's your target and what's the date?
Yep.
So is that something I should have asked beforehand or
You
at
know.
the meeting? Cause
You guys are obviously going to have questions.
Totally.
When the meetings happen, so that's not,
If you have a question in advance,
yeah,
don't hesitate to send it.
yeah, but if
Zoe.
you don't and something comes up,
Yeah.
like. If you had thought of that beforehand, I think we could have researched like what is a good. Best practice and when do we think we can accomplish that? Maybe could have given us more time. I think Delaney was able to, I think we,
answered
so always helpful,
I looked
but,
it up.
yeah, that's right.
I looked it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
and we're all in it together,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and this is less of a point about not asking questions at the dais.
Yeah.
And more a point of, if you have a question in advance, shoot it over.
yeah,
We're very happy to prep anything you need
Yeah.
to make sure that you feel best informed and we come prepared to a meeting.
I mean, in that case, it's like, that's something that I think the public should know, like that there's a goal here and that it's gonna
100%,
change.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So again, to Lenny's point, like,
Yeah.
don't always ask the questions that
Please.
you need to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we don't have all of the material,
yeah,
like
also true.
before,
That's
like
true.
we have like the memo, but we don't actually have the
And
full
vacancies,
presentation
you
with
won't
the
get-
charts and.
Yeah, and the vacancies like will come to you guys the day of because they're, a dynamic thing, so.
Yeah.
That's a very good point too.
Big piece, pause before posting. When thinking about your social media and sharing on your personal social media, remember 24/7 representative of the people that you elected and the organization that is working for you. Okay? Personal posts about town business can be public records. We will review some of that later. One voice after a vote. This is a really big piece that we haven't honed in on before, but supporting the council majority decisions publicly, even if you dissented. Stating disagreement respectfully is fine, but never undermine a colleague, okay? Once there's a majority decision, that decision is made, you can disagree with it, but be respectful of your colleagues in that sense. Honoring confidentiality, keeping executive session content absolutely confidential. This is incredibly important for your role in this teeny tiny town. The second one person hears one thing, it spreads and it plays a game of telephone all around town. Don't share privileged legal personnel or negotiation information outside of executive session ever. Okay, any questions about your tags? Sweet. Okay, so this is some workflow detail around how council communicates with staff. So let's say there's a resident inquiry or complaint. The resident is gonna contact council, of course, because you guys are public facing individuals. We love you. The council person's gonna listen attentively, because you are all wonderful at that. Council's gonna route to town manager. Manager is gonna delegate to staff. Staff is gonna resolve the issue or bring it forward in a work session for decision, so on and so forth. Media inquiries. Media is gonna approach the council person. You're gonna say, please contact our communications manager. I'll respond, I'll coordinate an interview, I'll make sure you have everything you need to feel prepared for that interview, whether it's a phone interview, video interview, email response, what have you. Ellen?
I do have a question about the media flow. Like for just the Telluride Times, like sometimes Owen will reach out and like that to me feels a little more casual than
It shouldn't.
Okay,
So it's media nonetheless, and Owen has been directed to always loop me into all communications to even council. So if I'm not CC'd on that email or he calls you directly, please just let me know.
he usually calls me,
Yeah,
like if he
and
wants
that's-
to talk.
And he does do that for staff
He does that for staff
also.
too.
And we say, Owen, stop, you're supposed to go to Lindsay.
Yes.
And so for.
So should I should be handling that differently, cause I haven't.
Yeah,
been
and that's
directing it to
okay.
you.
That's why we're here.
Okay,
So routing him to me is important because I need to be looped into the conversations that he's having and the stories that he's writing. And Teddy?
Oh, you finish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I think that it's important for you to say like, hey, have you looped in Lindsay? Did she authorize this call? I'm always happy to schedule a call, but then you have an opportunity to kind of take a step back. Look at this through a lens of a council person, not someone that's blindsided by a phone call necessarily from the media. And if the New York Times was calling you, I would say, reach out to Lindsay first. I'm very happy to schedule a meeting through her.
okay, yeah, I hope that ever
Yeah,
happens.
she's. It will.
I understand your position with this media inquiry flow and why you want us to do this.
Mhm.
I think it's like, it's a little bit interesting though, because like we'll just keep on the Owen example. There are times when like we're being reached out to because we have a differing viewpoint than that of council. So in that situation, like if I am, an opposition view to what the majority chose, I'm not going to be speaking with one voice, and I wouldn't expect you to be like facilitating me as an opposition, like, do you get what I'm saying?
That's
It's
my
like,
role.
like,
Yes, and
That
our
is-
role as elected officials is to use our voice to represent our
Yeah.
constituency.
And my role,
Just sometimes in difference with the other rest of the council.
And-
I understand your position.
yeah, and my role is
I
to
agree with
support
that.
you in working whatever talking points you need from whatever angle you're pulling.
even if it's in opposition to that council speaks with one voice, like determination that it's like,
Absolutely.
okay. That's
I'm
fine.
your resource. This is not a biased role. I am here to help you prep talking points, ensure that you are getting the points across that you want in the way that you want. And then the council speaking with one voice, the core of that is just ensuring that you are respectful in your dissent. It is
Sure.
not saying that like you should say you agree with everything that we voted on in the majority. The majority of council voted for this passed. That said, I feel this way because of this, and this.
Okay.
So approaching that responsibly and respectfully is the only goal of that. It's to say, council, the fact that the majority of council voted in this way, I dissent because of this. But not Lindsay's dumb and she should never be in charge of resident.
Which is
So-
really what I wanna say.
I know, right? But that's, the key is that I'm a resource. I will never try to sway you in a direction that is against what you're feeling or what you're saying. I will say in times, if we're drafting a statement and it doesn't align with where the town direction is going, there will be consistent communication around that if town is releasing the statement. But if you're talking to the media directly and you need advice, loop me in.
And I think the most important thing though is also just let Lindsay know if you get contacted, so
Yeah.
we also know what.
And if you move forward with a phone interview, don't feel like there's gonna be a slap on the wrist moment. I have no interest in that, but please do loop me in. Give me a call, shoot me an email, just let me know that this story is coming down the pipeline, because there are times when stories are getting written and I have no idea it's coming.
Mhm.
And
Just
then,
again, the relationship we're working with at the right times on.
Yes.
We're.
and it is something we've been working with them on for years.
And they're a little disorganized, but I'll speak
Yeah.
to how Lindsay can help everybody just from the whole, Kelsey situation from December and January. And she's just there to listen to you and make sure you're prepared and ask questions. At no point did she say, what do I say? How do I say it? Whatever, unless I asked her that question. And then she may follow up if she doesn't like what you said. For example, when I referenced, Marty and me and Scheme and Fiasco, that was quoted verbatim. Lindsay's like, you shouldn't say that. I'm like, well, it was a scheme and a fiasco.
It's not whether I agree or disagree, it's the goal of what your communications strategy was in that moment, and it was to maintain
Yep.
a certain rapport.
Then on another note, a little off topic, but it is the Times, due to the latest photo used in Telluride Times.
Oh my God.
I have, if we want, and I could probably include
It's pretty
a
bad.
few key staff members
Online.
on
Changed it.
Telluride Times is financial responsibility. They're happy to send over Melissa Plants before a council meeting and take a picture of each and every one of us.
Like a headshot
Yep.
that they can have on
use that
file.
Yeah.
Versus.
Just
And I- to be-
candid, random
to be-
candid photos.
To follow up on this, I have reached out to the Times after this incident and,
Thanks.
oh God, and I
It
said.
wasn't that bad.
It
It's
wasn't
pretty
great.
bad.
It wasn't good.
They did her dirty. They did her dirty. I mean, did you see the one of the mayor in the Denver Post where there's a woman standing behind him and he looks like he has a mullet? It's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Oh, yeah, his hair.
But what I did do, I reached out to the Times and I said, anytime you need a photo, will you please reach out to me?
Just ask.
Just ask.
It's pretty
And
bad.
so I'm very, I have some of your headshots already in my files. But if there's photos you love of yourself or I haven't reached out to you quite yet, send them over my way. And keep those coming. But we've been working on scheduling headshots for about a year with all of town staff as well. So you will be included in that when.
Melissa took a
That does
shot
it.
of me in like 1996 for ski school. It's still-
Perfect.
Go use that.
You haven't made
That way,
that
I really.
Question is do we want them to take our pictures? I pushed them away from the 17th because we would all probably be wearing green. But we can do it on the 31st, you don't have to answer yet, but it's something that the Times will do, and they will have pictures in their queue to use. Because as we know with the Times, it's usually last second.
Yeah,
And they're gonna
I don't
use
think it hurts. I want you all to feel well represented, especially when you're quoted in our local newspaper and posted online for the world to see. And then reposted 6 times with 4 different photos. Okay, so let's connect on that.
Okay.
And then so media inquiry, you have full reign this is advisement. This is what we would prefer. You have full reign to proceed however you would like. Ensuring that I'm looped in, make sure we have a finger on the pulse of what's being written. We can prep talking points or any sort of response if needed. And we'll go over owned, earned, and paid media in a minute and why this is critical. But if we can control the narrative, then we ensure that the story is written in a way that is responsible, has a 360 view, and really represents the work that you're doing and that staff is doing on the town side. Okay. Misinformation spreading on social media. Ashley and I had a really wonderful engagement last week on this. A council person sees something, document it, screenshot it, grab a URL, send it to me directly, whether that's a text notification, an email, what have you. I am very comfortable representing town from my personal accounts when we can't get the town account into a group. Rants and bitching is the only one where the town account doesn't have posting authority, so it's me, which is no big deal. I'm a good messenger and this is something I've been doing for a few years. I do my best to monitor as best as possible. If you feel comfortable driving somebody to the proper resources when you see misinformation being spread, go for it. You have full authority to do so. But again, pause before posting. Okay,
Do you care if, like, I'm not on Facebook at all because of the marked up?
I love that for you.
Scumbag.
Please don't.
Keep it
ever
that
do
way.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
No,
a
if I
lucky,
didn't
you're
have
a
to
lucky
be-
individual.
If I didn't have to be on social media for my job, I wouldn't have it. So no, I don't care. I will talk about why a council platform might be beneficial, but Facebook probably isn't necessary for that for you. Okay. So we'll always respond with corrected official sources. Sorry, that says record, but it should say respond. So we'll always drive to the information as it lives on our websites. So Engage is a really good place to drive people for any sort of project details, timelines and so on. But also if you see someone complaining about something, feel free to say like, hey, have you brought this to the town? Feel free to email info at, and they can address it. This has happened many times where I'm connecting with someone offline after I saw them ranting and bitching and I'm like, did you talk to Public Works? And the answer is usually no. And then driving to reliable official town channels. So driving to our website, driving to our socials, driving to our inboxes. Any way you can get people connected to town channels and help facilitate that, that is part of your role. Okay, communications tools, we'll fly through this, this is a bit of a long section, so we'll actually kind of skip the next 3 slides. But our core communications tools are as follows, website is run on a Civic Plus platform, it's clunky as heck, we're working on overhauling it. This is kind of my last software overhaul in my 3-year plan, and it is a beast. But that said, it is our source of truth, if it's not on the website, it isn't necessarily official. eBlast, we run this through MailChimp. You can jump on and subscribe. We have new topics popping up in our subscribe section all the time, things that are being sunset. Shandoka lot and the Carhenge lot were introduced, I think, at the beginning of January for people to subscribe. We obviously pushed that Shandoka lot detail last night. And then the Carhenge Engage page will go live today. Social media, we're scaling away from Twitter. We're not seeing a ton of engagement there, and it has been useless to have the same post across all 3 platforms. So we're focusing our energy on Facebook and Instagram now. We've explored Nextdoor, but have found with our peer communities that it is just another ransom bitching. So we'll keep that to our Facebook platform for now. So Facebook and Instagram are going to be our core channels moving forward. We will not disband Twitter by any means, but we're not actively posting there anymore. News releases, this is gonna be where you see anything that is newsworthy. You're gonna see this kind of scaling back as we implement more e-blasts and newsletters over an actual physical news release moving forward. The manager's report is a huge tool for you all to understand what is going on in each of the departments. This is a heavy lift for all of our department heads on a tri-weekly basis, and is something that we hope you're reading, because it takes a lot of time to pull this together, and it gives you every single insight into what is happening. And encourage the public to read this, because it is your one-stop shop for what is happening across the entire town. And it's very comprehensive, and it's usually a pretty light read. We're talking like maybe 15 pages usually, and that's like formatted.
It's relevant
15.
too, yeah.
Yeah. And then Engage Telluride, this is our public engagement and project tracking website, engagetelluride.org. This is where all of our project specific timelines, meetings, if you're looking for any background information on the projects, this all exists on Engage. And then finally, emergency alerts. This is our life safety and urgent disruptions channel. We also run our text notifications through the same platform, but we can geofence an alert. So you've seen this come into play when we have an evacuation from Town Park for a lightning strike, or lightning proximity. Any questions on the platforms? Okay. We're gonna fly through this. I'll send this to you after. Understanding media channels. So in Telluride, we know how fast information spreads. We use 3 types of media, and this is standard throughout all communications. But we have owned media, earned media, and paid media. Owned media are the channels that we control. So this is our town website, our social media accounts, everything we just reviewed. This is our source of truth for the public. We want people to be subscribing to this, reading it, digesting it, understanding it, asking questions about it, engaging with it, adding to calendar. We control timing, tone, and accuracy of all of our owned content. There's no paid behind this. Earned media is coverage we do not control. This is where the Telluride Times comes in, where the New York Times Calling Elena comes in. This is local newspaper stories, regional or national news coverage. No, we're manifesting. Radio interviews, community blog posts. You see some blogs around town. You see some influencers around town that are posting and commenting about town happenings. Social media resharing. Why it matters, it expands reach, but we don't control the headline unless we get involved early. So the more notice we can get and the more engagement that we can have with any sort of earned media, the better we can control that narrative and control the routing once it does get published. If it's misinformation, it's important for us to debunk it quickly. Paid media, finally, sponsored placement. We don't do a ton of paid media, newspaper ads. We do 2 a week now that they're once a week published. Social media boosted posts when it's really critical information. Sponsored digital ads are something that we're exploring with the Telluride Times. And then tourism marketing partnerships. So our destination marketing is where a lot of our paid media occurs. So this is where we're actually paying into the destination marketing campaigns and helping direct that as well.
Do you mean the stuff with the tourism board?
Exactly, yep. Marketing Telluride Incorporated. So we use paid media really strategically. We use it to reach businesses, we use it to promote public meetings, And we use it to expand our engagement beyond our existing audience. So for folks that read the paper every day, but don't necessarily look at Instagram, newspaper ads are really helpful. So this is where we're gonna post your agenda highlights 2 weeks out from your council meeting, your full agenda a week out from council meetings, any sort of community engagement events, at least 2 weeks out with a follow-up the week before. And this is where we really can kind of boost our reach more than anything. So just remember, owned, we control it. Earned requires a loop in with comms. And this is where others tell our story, so it's important for us to get involved early. And paid, we amplify intentionally. Strongest communication strategies, use all three. Okay. This is kind of, we'll go through this quickly, but this is an overview of just kind of the tactics you're gonna see used intermittently. We're not gonna use every single tool and channel for every single communication. What we communicate is just as important as how we communicate it. So a road closure is gonna have a social and text notification because it's time sensitive. It's gonna be posted immediately. We don't need to post 4 hours later after drafting a news release. It's time sensitive. We need to get something out quickly. If there's a new program, we'll have an e-blast with linking so people can learn about it. There will be a website update. We're targeting the right audiences here. If there's a policy change, so something occurs in council and you make a decision, we're gonna push a news release. We'll update it on the website. We'll follow up with any details of the needs of changed behavior for the public, so on and so forth. But a formal record is required here. Safety threats, we're gonna have an emergency alert, that geofenced detail that we talked about for a push notification, a website banner, and then an actual tracker. So this will give you you've probably followed like New York Times during a big, sorry for bringing up the New York Times again. But like during a big incident, the New York Times will have what is called a ticker, actually, but we'll call it a tracker. So it's the Town of Telluride ticker. We open up an emergency services page that takes over our homepage, and it's updates by time. The most recent update will always be on top, and then your updates will file below. So you can kind of catch up on what's happening. Construction updates, we're gonna have social media and an engage page around that. Sometimes we'll do a text notification by subscription. That was especially helpful for the Main Street Accessibility Project last year. But as you can see, we're not gonna always use every single tactic for everything, which is why it's important that people subscribe to all of our communications channels for things that they think they might be interested in.
Can I ask real quick, because I've just been on the mountain every 6 days. I haven't seen the construction on Main Street by Clark's. How's that looking? Just before I forget to ask about it.
Better, but I think that's a topic for another time, Kristen. I think
Okay.
we're here for communication
Thank
strategies.
you. Yeah, I am not the subject matter expert, but I can get those details to you
Okay,
later.
thank you. Just before I forget.
Okay, so we'll bop through these scenarios. I don't wanna step on wastewater treatment tours, because that is the best. But let's touch base real quickly about 3 quick scenarios. First case study, an armed suspect at large. This did happen. A gentleman brandished a weapon on Main Street and then abandoned his vehicle and was confirmed running throughout town with a gun. So the scenario, we're coordinating with the Telluride Marshal's Department during a life safety emergency and the report of an armed person at large. What made this really unique is that this was a shelter in place versus a full evacuation message. So we were telling people to stay in their homes for an actual defined radius. So we had east and west streets, north and south streets where people were expected to shelter in place, close their windows, lock their doors, and stay home. The description of the male could have applied to multiple residents, so it's not something we could have released early because of speculation. The threat was unresolved and actually mobile. We didn't know where he was. He was on foot, so very easy to slip in and out of places. Rumor and panic spread quickly and much faster than the facts did, and resolution isn't always clean. So in a situation such as this, key factor in emergencies, do not self-deploy. Council members should never go to the scene. Please don't think that we want you on scene. We want, yeah, that's the other piece about the shelter in place rather than evacuate. Which is the most dangerous thing that could have happened, was locking inside a fishbowl. So a lot of key learnings there. Consider the radius, read the message, and take the message to heart very specifically. We target our communications very clearly, so heed those communications as they are written. But please don't go to the scene. Stay clear and be available by phone. Your presence complicates Marshall's operations. You can always say, we're aware of the situation, we're working with the Marshal's Department to get more information. Town manager is always gonna be your source. Please don't call chief. Don't call any of the deputies who you're friends with or who you call regularly for noise complaints. Don't call the Marshal's Department directly. You don't need to call dispatch. The manager coordinates with the incident commander, which is always gonna be chief, and then we'll brief council. Safety of our community is the top priority, okay? Please don't say anything publicly. Don't post, don't comment, don't respond to calls until the manager and I release an approved statement. We'll provide a statement to you to release with talking points as soon as we have information that you're able to release and that is confirmed by the Marshal's Department. The mayor's gonna act as a spokesperson here, so if the media has to have a response, the mayor's gonna be the one to deliver what is confirmed. We're never gonna speculate on motive, numbers, suspects, anything like that. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And then we'll coordinate post incident. After the scene's cleared, council may need to hold a special meeting. We'll draft a community statement. All of council will review mayoral statements before they are published. Right, so you'll have an opportunity to read that, offer feedback, and we'll move forward there. But here's your hierarchy. It's gonna be chief marshal, town manager, mayor, council. And I'm somewhere in the town manager's one. I'm also the PIO for the Marshal's Department, so I'm usually looped in as soon as Zoe is. Okay, any questions on your role during an incident such as this one? Okay, great. So the tools we used emergency alerts, we used a website banner, we pushed a news release for post-incident community statement. We used social media only after that approved statement was released. Direct council briefing was the manager calling the mayor, and then full council for level 1 hierarchy. And we had special meeting notice. I don't actually think we ended up holding a special meeting around this one, because it took a few days for this guy to turn himself in. So he actually left Telluride, went back to Norwood, and was apprehended the next day. So, or he came in, am I remembering that correctly? Anyways, but one of the big pieces on the social media front here is the second we released a description of the gentleman, a local resident posted a picture of a resident she thought it was. This is a really bad look. If you see that happening and you know that resident, don't hesitate to reach out and say, please take that down. You're interfering with an investigation. Okay. Key takeaways, council's job in a life safety crisis is to stay out of the way, but stay available, not to show up, not to post, and never to speculate. One spokesperson only, this will be chief or the mayor delivering any public statement using only confirmed information and only information that won't interfere with the investigation. Again, many times during an open active investigation, as you've seen recently with the Brandon Baker detail, there's not a lot of information we're able to release, but we will release as much information as we are able to, as soon as we are able to, okay? The chain of command is not a suggestion. Silence is not an action. Waiting for confirmed facts before speaking is always the right call, right? We've seen media take a lead and just jump on it because they think that they're gonna be first and they get the facts wrong. And it tampers with an investigation every single time. Post-incident communication is just as important as real-time response, so the community needs to hear from you once the dust settles. Continuing to ensure that the Marshal's Department is working hard, ensuring that you have confidence in the staff that is working to keep this community safe. Okay. Major infrastructure project. This is pretty familiar for most of you. We had a multi-month construction effort affecting businesses and traffic last summer, doing the Main Street accessibility bump outs. The main concerns was community sensitivity. We had business access concerns, parking frustration, noise complaints, and skepticism around our timeline, even though we did finish early. The comms response in this, before construction, we had a dedicated engage page, which you will have access to for all of our summer construction again this year. We have an FAQ, a timeline with no full commitments to a deadline, and business outreach. During construction, we had weekly updates, and this was actually through a text notification system. If you subscribed, you could, if you text Maine to 38276, you were part of our subscription notifications. We had clear detour maps anytime we had closures, honest timeline adjustments, and acknowledgement of the inconvenience. We're deeply human people, and we understand the people being impacted. We had face-to-face interactions with every single business that was impacted by the bump out project. And Public Works had point of contact on site every single day, engaging with those folks. And it was a really incredible thing to see that human interaction shift perception of a project that was deeply impactful for an entire summer. After completion, we have before and after visuals and a public thank you. We're highlighting benefits. So what's your role here? Ideally, when you're hearing complaints, you're driving people to the Engage page where all of the information lives. They can learn about the timeline, they can subscribe, you know how to tell them to subscribe. If you don't, shoot me a text and be like, hey, how does someone subscribe to this again? I'm very happy to be available for that. But giving people the tools that we have already implemented, when you hear them complaining about something and saying like, this is why we're doing this, or if you don't even know that answer, like, hey, let's look this up together and get more information. That encourages confidence in the work that Public Works is doing when it's deeply disruptive and the public is upset. Okay. So the tools we used: Engage Telluride. We had a news release surrounding the project, website updates consistently. We had an ongoing project hub and detour maps on our Goose site. We had e-blasts surrounding major project milestones. Social media was kind of fleeting, but we tried for weekly construction updates and detour reminders anytime they existed. Construction signage was actually overhauled to drive people to our story map online where they could learn more about all of the construction the town was in charge of last summer. And that'll continue again this year. Manager's report had updates in every single council meeting, and we had local media coordination with the Planet. Council's role again is to know the resources and direct residents and visitors to the proper channels for information and feedback. If they're upset about something, have them submit public comment. Okay. The rest of the key takeaways are all about proactive communication. So the more we can get ahead of something in this front, the better we can take care of the public and the better they feel that they're being brought along instead of forced into something. And then finally, ski patrol strike and resort closure. The holiday resort closure due to the labor dispute. What made this really unique, we had national media attention. There was an immediate economic impact. There was a very emotional community response. Multiple jurisdictions were involved. And there was social media speculation flying. An entirely new Telluride Sweet Deals as a result. Communications response. We want to acknowledge the impact. We understand the resort closure is affecting businesses and visitors throughout our community. We want you to express community solidarity, but we want you to stay in your lane. In a situation like this is a private labor dispute. Council does not take sides between the resort and ski patrol because we don't have that in our purview. Okay.
Can I ask a question about that too?
Yeah.
I think that because we're representative of the government, that there's actually issues with us taking sides. Not beyond just like, we should stay in our lane and it's not, doesn't involve us and we shouldn't be doing that. But like, there's actually in labor disputes, isn't that right, Kevin? Like,
Yeah.
we can't be like, we're on this team or we're on this team because it violates labor laws.
Yeah.
As,
We put a press release out.
as a council, but as an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously it's
We
individual,
did.
but still like, it's just being aware of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this gave me an actual key learning. This was a pretty new runaround for me. And it gave me a key learning because we issued a statement from Teddy very early stating that we did not take sides. We wanted this to resolve early. And it was a very, very straightforward, neutral statement. What should have happened is I should have run it by you all before we pushed that. This was the stance of council as far as we took it from that council meeting and from our engagement or your engagement with patrol. But that should have been something you all had eyes on before it came to your inbox as a news release. So this has been a refined effort in our communication strategy for situations like this moving forward. So anytime a mayoral statement is released, it's not just me and Teddy working on that. It is you all having eyes on it before it goes live as well.
And when things are time sensitive, do you give like a certain amount of time for council to review?
And it's not, it is very unlikely to be a review. It is more a notice that
No.
this is a statement that is going to be going out. So you are aware. It's not asking for edits. It's not asking for input. If there's something glaring, which this is always derived from your council stance and from our legal perception as well. Kevin will always review these statements. But if there's something incredibly glaring, then we can discuss that. But typically, I find that these statements are drafted in a neutral manner and are something that most of you would get on board with. Or have already stated.
Is there any differentiation between the mayor making a statement from the mayor's
Mhm.
position versus making a statement on behalf of the entirety of council? Cause I feel like that's sometimes I have been frustrated previously of like, a statement on behalf of council came out, and that is the first time that I saw it, and I'm like, well, I didn't say yes or no, like, I'm reading this the same as the public, and it's being represented as a council statement versus if Teddy wants to make a statement as the mayor.
Right.
And that's what.
And that's what I'm
Lindsay-
saying,
Yeah.
is like, this was a learning from my experience in this incident in particular, was that this needs to be either a statement on behalf of council or in a time-sensitive manner, a mayoral statement.
Yeah, the mayor could just say,
You will know.
I am making a statement.
You will never hear from, that incident we're referring forward, me representing council without talking to council first. If I say something that I wanna say, it's just gonna be the mayor.
Cool.
So moving forward, you will have eyes on these statements before we can get a thumbs up or thumbs down. If I need something time sensitively, in a time sensitive manner, then I'll probably text each of you and say like, hey, need your eyes on this right now. If I don't hear from you within a certain amount of time, we'll probably go live with that if we have a majority.
Is the position
Or
then
we'll
that
move it-
no,
or
that
we'll move
a
it to-
non-reply is
Yeah,
essentially a yes?
Yes,
and I sent an email out with that new policy
Yeah.
a while ago, and
I think in December or January. We can pull that back.
That was a lifetime ago.
Oh, girl, I know.
That was in 2026, right? It's 2030 now. So yes, so it's a private labor dispute. We are not taking sides, and the perception of that by both sides impacts you as elected officials, period. So staying neutral in this sense is definitely advised and also legally required. Redirecting economic questions, you can refer town economic development staff, you can refer anything or anyone you need to our town economic development staff. So our finance director, Zoe, myself, and then the tourism board for any of our visitor impact data. So refer people to the subject matter experts or say, hey, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. Let me get those details for you. And then we can help pull that. And then coordinating with media. If national media calls, please route all inquiries to me, loop me in, and don't have impromptu interviews. Make sure you feel prepared. Don't just answer a phone call and say like, yeah, I'll have an interview right now. Give yourself time to digest what they're asking for. You can always, always, always say, can you email me the questions that you're gonna ask me in the interview, and can we schedule a time to do this later? I'm running into a meeting, even if you're not. It's always within your right to say, I don't want to interview. No, thanks, I'm good. Okay, you have full control, even when they're calling you directly.
They will mention if you decline in the story though.
Turns out, well, only the rude ones. So avoid these mistakes, taking a public position on private dealings, making economic projections or loss estimates without actual data, ranting on-camera interviews without comms coordination, using personal social media to share or amplify one side or the other, promising town financial assistance or resources without a council vote. Speaking to national media about the town's relationship with an opinion on either side. Okay.
Wait, can you
Yeah.
go back for a
Hit
second?
me.
Using personal social media to share, amplify. Oh, one side or the other,
Yep.
okay.
And
I
then
guess,
we'll get into a separation of personal versus,
Okay.
this is advisement.
Okay,
And this pertains to folks that don't have council specific channels. If you don't have a channel that is specific to your role as a council person, your personal social media is subject to everything. I mean, everything you do is subject to that, but separating personal dealings and opinions and council dealings and opinions protects you from public perception skewing. If
Okay.
that makes sense.
yeah,
Okay. We'll skip tools used. You were all deeply involved in that. Key takeaways, know your lane. The labor dispute belongs strictly to the resort and ski patrol. Council's role is to support the community, not referee the conflict. We're not in the middle of this. Lead with economic empathy. businesses, workers, and visitors are all hurting. Acknowledge that clearly and early if you are going to take a stance. Staying neutral is not staying silent. You can be vocal about supporting the community without taking sides on the dispute itself. National media attention changes the stakes. We saw national media attention in mid-December, and it changed our entire season. Every off-the-cuff comment has the potential to travel, so you should route everything through me, because I can help make sure that your off-the-cuff comments stay between us instead of going into a national news story. Recovery is also part of the response. Getting economic resources in front of businesses quickly, which you did beautifully, is just as important as the initial messaging. So that long-term communication with your constituents, with your businesses, with your visitors about the impact that this had is important to recognize. I know.
Be great.
Oh,
Oh, is there
are
more?
yeah, there's more. We spent a lot on section 1. We can fly through this pretty quick. And then I can send us along. Yeah, I'm quick. Let's just go through their response guide.
I'll
So,
give you 5 more minutes.
oh, that's plenty.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll fly through this. Okay, so how should I respond to a public question? Is it about town policy? That's your role. We love that for you. So housing policies, budget priorities, council votes, long-term planning. You can explain the decision, share the reasoning behind the majority vote, discuss your dissent in a respectful manner, and provide broader context as needed. Council discussed this during public meeting and made the decision based on this, and this. Is it a town operations question? That's staff's role, so you're gonna direct that question to Zoe. Construction timelines, snow removal, utility outages, permits, rec programs, direct the person to the town manager. You're not the right source for operational details, but you hired the person that's running that and you trust them. Emergency or active situation, that's the official's lead. If it's a fire, that's gonna be the fire department. If it's sheriff's jurisdiction, it's gonna be the sheriff's department. If it's ours, it's marshal's. Don't speculate or share unverified information ever. Direct residents to official sources only. If it's a legal matter, that's staff's role. That's when you're gonna get in touch with the town attorney. You're gonna talk to Kevin about pending litigation, contracts, code enforcement disputes, liability questions. Don't interpret, speculate on, or comment about legal matters. These are handled by the town attorney through staff and refer to him accordingly. Rumor or unclear claim, we never have these. Pause first and verify. Social media claims, word of mouth, unverified reports, ask staff for verification. Come to me, come to Zoe. Share the official information once it's confirmed or direct people to official resources. Avoid repeating the rumor or even denying it. Okay, make sure you're providing the right information, not just saying that's not true. Okay. All right, your quick guides down there. How council can help stop misinformation. Don't amplify rumors. Share the verified information and the town official resources. Acknowledge uncertainty honestly, always okay. Avoid speculation, even if it's casual. And redirect all technical questions to staff. Okay. You know the realities of Telluride. When to take advantage of communications, media calls. A project has unforeseen impacts. You know of a win we should be celebrating, let us know. You anticipate community pushback before a vote or an announcement, let us know. You want talking points, you want anything developed around something that makes you nervous, reach out, we can help. Social media comments about the town are escalating or spreading misinformation. A constituent issue is going public or attracting outside attention, or a regional or national story touches Telluride directly. Early coordination prevents reactive messaging. What we need from you guys, I can send this along to you, you can read this later. Knowing the resources, valuing each other's ideas and each other as people, treating each other with respect, being a positive ambassador for the town 24 hours a day. And unfortunately, that is incredibly important here. Keeping each other informed to avoid surprises, but making sure you aren't reaching for them as needed. Keeping the big picture in view, looking at our goals and objectives. Yep, so, okay, then setting up social channels that are independent of your personal channels. So if you have personal social channels, those are great. If they're public, everyone can see what you're doing. You're representing the town on those social media platforms all the time. My recommendation, make those private. Set yourself up with a public council Instagram account where you can give public input. You can augment our messaging, you can share our meetings, you can provide your opinions on a vote. You can run everything through those channels. You can make a formal apology in a public setting. Okay? But setting up those channels independent of your personal channels protects your personal time and your personal life in a really sincere way. That's it.
Good job, Liz.
I'm available if you have
Everyone
questions.
got it?
Yeah.
Everybody got it?
Got it? I'm available if you have questions. Yeah, don't get on Facebook. If you don't have it, don't get it. All right. I'm available if you have questions after this, but go enjoy the wastewater treatment plant.
Well, we're gonna do a presentation. We're gonna talk first.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I stopped jumping ahead of myself.
No, you're fantastic. Is there any questions for Lindsay?
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really
Thanks, you guys. I will send this presentation out to each of you, and if you have questions, please don't hesitate to follow up. Thank you. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna set up our next half
Sorry.
of today. I'm so grateful for the Mount Village team. And we have our wastewater team also coming in. I don't think they're right here yet. They're gonna be second half, but they're gonna be here soon.
I'm listening.
So if you wanna set up to volunteer for speed drawing.
Wait,
Do you wanna log into the Zoom and just share your screen?
Actually, I'll do whatever you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you're gonna talk first. Oh,
Take it.
I probably have, Amy, is it okay if I have you go first? Cause I feel like current plan first makes sense.
And then in case there's anyone listening online, this
me
is
help you.
now
Thank you.
moving into agenda item 1B, which is overview of current and future wastewater treatment plan. Kyle Beck, Amy Martell, Michelle Haynes,
Michelle Wilson.
Michelle Bolson, okay? We'll make a note of that, Tiffany. Amongst many.
So we are gonna spend the next hour-ish, guys. The first half is gonna be just an update of our current wastewater treatment plant, where we are, some of the updates that we have been doing at that current plant, how that plant is looking and the fantastic team we have there. Then we're gonna pass it over to the Mountain Village team and where we are on that beautiful piece of land that we have acquired. And some of the work we've been doing on the new wastewater treatment plant. And then we're gonna go on a tour of our current plant. And that tour is required if you haven't gone there already. If you have gone, you don't have to do it again, but it is fun. Who hasn't gone to the plant before?
I'm so excited.
Wow, that surprises me, Dan. That's awesome. I'm glad we're finally getting you out there. Okay, so did I stall enough, filibuster enough for you, Amy?
Do we need rides?
Oh, yeah, start with that. Who needs a ride to the plant?
So I brought a car,
And I can take 3.
so I can take
And I'm not going,
3, I can take 4.
not that I don't love it.
1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll take Elena, Dan, and Tiff.
I
And
went-
Maria.
Well, I went and I dry heat,
Yeah.
so according to all the list,
It's a lot better now.
But uh,
It's a lot better.
It is a lot.
Oh.
So you don't plan on going again? Is that what you're saying?
I think I got it.
Okay.
I have to be at work, so I mean, I can go quickly. I'll
Okay,
drive this.
sounds like we'll be able to figure it out.
And Zoe, will we
Yeah.
have a problem going to that if we don't have a quorum?
The tour? We don't have a car?
If we don't have.
Well, it is an agendized item.
I think you're gonna have.
We're gonna have
You have stuff.
You have 4.
Elena and Kristen and
Dan.
You have 4.
Dan.
So we don't need that.
And I'm 50.
But I'll be there for a few
Oh,
minutes.
even if
Or
I-
an hour now.
I'm a pretty hard stop, right?
Yeah, great.
But if Kristen leads early.
That's 3.
Then you can turn the recorder off.
Okay.
If you lose 3,
Okay,
keep it
yeah.
on 3 more.
Okay.
You just end the meeting, right? That's all you do is say, we're adjourned.
Perfect. Great question. All right, thanks, Amy. We'll pass it off to you.
Just letting Corey know. So my name is Amy Martell. I'm the Water Wastewater Division Manager for Town of Telluride. I'm here to give you some updates on the wastewater treatment plant. We're first gonna start with how we got here today, and then we'll morph into some of the improvements that we're making today to get the plant running and optimized. So the current treatment process, for those that don't know, we use a conventional oxidation ditch activated sludge process. That's a mouthful. The wastewater comes into the plant through headworks, it gets screened and the grit is removed. It then flows to those oxidation ditches where the beneficial bacteria remove the organic waste. It's followed by clarification and disinfection before being discharged to the San Miguel River. This is a biological process that relies on microorganisms to break down pollutants and clean the water before it's released to the environment. The solids also get separated through an aerobic digester process, dewatered through screw presses, and transported to Delta, Colorado for further processing and compost. So how we got here today, in 2017, a master plan was created by Stantec. This plan identified, that the plant needed to get some upgrades. There was aging infrastructure and equipment that was identified as reaching the end of its useful service life. It also identified that there's limited capacity in operation. The operation flexibility to meet the future growth and seasonal population swings was non-existent. There's future regulatory requirements for nutrients, metals, and other emerging contaminants. And also several key systems like the electrical, pumping, ventilation, and aeration equipment requires replacement and modernization to maintain reliable operations.
And we can pause just real quick, so we can explain the graph. What I really want to point out here is you're seeing we're hitting peaks of 150%. We were supposed to be in construction at 95%, so you can see kind of where we sit today on those risks.
It looks like the majority of the time we're above that 90%.
Yeah, and that's where, like, even if it was just one point in time, those peaks, that's what's unfortunate, is the state looks at it, it doesn't have to be for the series, it's one point in time. No, you're absolutely right, like now we're.
If you're a draw line.
reaching, the majority of that is over that capacity, and,
Yes.
and to be specific, it's, our organics
Yeah.
versus our volume capacity.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Is the dip over the past years that, you're, like, doing more regulation with FOGs or whatever that acronym is?
No, I can explain this. So the blue line is actually the flow into the plant, the hydraulic flow, which we're always under that 100%. The pink line is that organic capacity, and we measure that with BOD, biological oxygen demand. So that's the amount of food coming into the plant. And that's where we're seeing the peaks, mainly over spring break, the holidays, and bluegrass / 4th of July. This dip is actually this past sea patrol strike / lack of population in town.
Whoa.
So we're meeting capacity now, but that's not a good representation
Okay.
of the past several years. And you can also see we've been collecting a lot more data points. We used to only collect one data point a month, and
Okay.
we were unsure if that was representative of that, what was actually happening in the plant. So we started collecting a lot more data points just to confirm our hypothesis. Question?
Both my questions were answered, thank you.
Great. And Kyle was correct, over 80% capacity, we are supposed to be in design, over 95% we're supposed to be in construction. And
And
these
what
are-
percentage of the year are we over 95%, would you say?
I don't have, it's just during those peak times, specifically spring break in late March, Christmas, New Year's, and bluegrass through the 4th of July.
Amy, you might want to point out for 2025 and early part of 2026, we've stayed within and below the 100. The max one peak was at 100% there.
Yeah, but
The entire year.
2025 to 2026,
I think that data point was just in 2024 technically, but
right?
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
That-
I think you could make an argument that there's been a significant reduction in 2025 through current 2026.
We are seeing a population decrease. We do supply these numbers to Visit Telluride, so I think that's being captured.
Pardon me. Those metrics of above 80 and above 95, is that a state suggestion or regulation?
It's a state regulation per our permit, so it's on the permit. When they regulate that, we don't know. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a few slides, but it's a state mandated requirement.
And kind of the purpose of that is the state bases that off of your capabilities of treating, organics at your plant. So
Yeah.
that relates to that risk of your effluent not being permanent, which is the next step where the team has really done very well to keep, you know, our permit within the permit regulation. And so that's really what the concern is not meeting your effluent.
Yeah, so these limits were based, they're on the permit, but they were based on the design capacity of the plant when the plant was first built. First phase was built in 1987, and there was 2 other phases added on. It's not actually representative. We do treat the wastewater really well right now, but we are getting to the capacity as it's shown. So after 2017, and we decided to hire an advisor into 2021. This wastewater advisor was named H2O Innovation. And their purpose was to provide us with technical consulting services. I want to point out that H2O Innovation is a membrane technology manufacturer with experience specifically in the MBR, the membrane bioreactor treatment system. But their role was to help the town develop a consulting engineer slash construction contractor RFP to establish an initial master plan implementation strategy and prepare preliminary design concepts for the plant upgrades. So later that year, we put out the RFP and we hired Grollo Engineers as a consulting engineer to assist H2O with developing these documents and giving us a path forward. They built out a facilities assessment, a hydraulic model, a liquid stream process analysis based on the NBR process, and then they also gave us solids handling improvements. Something to point out though is that in the reports, Grollo specifically mentions that the NBR technology is not a final design or the only required solution. It just simply showed that one possible concept for how a membrane system could fit as a retrofit in that plant. However, the town took that information and decided to go with the NBR process and built out a contract, specifically a design build project contract with that NBR technology specified in that contract. The town hired PCL Construction as a project manager, and Grollo Engineer was their subcontractor in that contract as a design engineer. So that began the design of a retrofit of this existing plant, and it specifically had a new headworks building and this NBR system as the secondary treatment in the plant, as well as it addressed a bunch of other upgrades and redundancies in the plant. So then we got to 30% design with PCL. And this retrofit turned into about $133 million. It was nearly twice as much as what we originally thought this retrofit was going to cost. And it raised a lot of concerns about the feasibility, as well as the site constraints on this existing lot and how we were going to expand in the future. So due to all of these concerns, we made the difficult decision to cancel this contract in 2023. And one of a lesson learned was that because we specified a specific technology in this contract, we were unable to pivot at this point and look at other alternatives because we were so focused on this one technology. Do you have any other comments on that?
No, you discussed everything I would say.
Great, so in the meantime, our intent was to look at any intensification processes that we could perform at the plant without going into major design or retrofit. And so we hired Grollo to do a BioWin model of the plant and really evaluate what we as operators could do to intensify any other process and get more lifespan. We were just trying to buy some more time until management could figure out another solution. So what this model told us was that the oxidation ditches in the brush rotor aeration system were the primary limiting factor. The plant was originally designed to accept BOD around 220 milligrams per liter, while the peak events that we were seeing on that graph before were approximately 450 milligrams per liter. So this is greatly increasing the oxygen demand in those ditches. Our biological process relies on simultaneous nitrification and denitrification in the ditches. But with this peak tourism loading, the plant often requires all the aerators and basins to be operating. So it leaves limited operational flexibility for us. However, our operators have tried to improve the system by installing these DO probes in the ditches. It's tied to our SCADA telemetry computer. So this allows the brush rotors to automatically speed up and slow down based on real-time oxygen demand. Despite this, there were no other intensification processes identified. And the operators have really done all they can with these ditches, to max out their lifespan, as well as, avoid a major retrofit to the oxidation ditches at this time.
Sorry, quick, go ahead.
I was just gonna follow, like, that's where I'm super impressed, and hopefully you guys get to meet Tyler. How I relate this is he's turned this plant into AI to where it's automatically reading and changing speeds through a VFD, which is huge, and that's how they're making it happen, is Tyler stepped in, they introduced these new probes into the ox ditches, but again, like, everything's maxed out. There's no redundancy. If one of those goes down, then we are at a huge risk of being non-compliant. The rotors are at max capacity speed at times when they need to get that, the oxygen levels up. So we're really maxed out. They're doing everything they can to make it work, but unfortunately, there is no more wiggle room to make things happen. So I huge kudos to the team, but, unfortunately, they've done everything they could with those ox ditches.
Quick question on the BOD, because I know that there's multiple factors, as you acknowledged, Amy, but one that we didn't discuss, and I just wonder if you are able to track this input at all, and sorry to call out an individual business, but I know the brewery moving its production outside of Wasson Hill, that was one of the bigger contributors to our BOD levels. Are we able to quantify how much that is helping us reduce that?
We haven't quantified it at the plant specifically. It's hard to just pinpoint one plant. We would have to go back to them, and quantify their individual, BOD load on the, plant. But the way I look at it is like a pie chart. So everybody is allotted a certain amount of BOD, and they were taking up a good portion of it, taking it away from other folks. But yeah, the intent of that was to try to start lowering the concentration. Like I said, because we typically, most plants, like even in Montrose, they operate closer to this 220 milligrams per liter. The fact that we're getting 450 is telling me that the concentration of restaurants in the town of Telluride and Mountain Village is what's making our wastewater so concentrated, and like the brewery. But that wasn't enough to see a significant decrease and get us under that 85%, I would say.
Yeah, and now that we have this pre-treatment coordinator, we have the capability of going to a manhole and doing individual testing, but unfortunately, restaurants are isolated with a manhole. It'll be collecting multiple restaurants, so you really can't identify who's creating, the highest concentration, but that's part of that inspection with the grease traps, and so that'll be a huge part of the effort. The team is spending so much time on pre-treatment and going to these restaurants, and I wish I could say like, oh, we're making progress. It's a huge change. You'll see a photo on here just yesterday. They plugged the entire headwork system with grease to where they had to take apart the screen because it was compacted in there because there was so much fat, oil, and grease. You'll see a photo. It's terrible. Yeah. And we're gonna let you handle it today to show you kind of the texture.
Do a taste test?
Yeah.
Great.
See if you can identify what, it's great. You wanna take my?
Take that? I'm out of here.
So I wanted to touch on some of the regulatory requirements. Currently, we're operating under a CDPHE permit. This permit only requires secondary treatment at this time. So that means that we must biologically remove pollutants and organic matters, and suspended solids before we discharge. The permit also establishes strict effluent limits for nutrients, metals, and other pollutants. In 2025, the permit was set to be renewed, but it's currently under administrative extensions. And we haven't been updated yet with the stricter limits. And I want to point that out because that's why I'm assuming that we haven't heard from the state yet, is because we haven't been issued this new permit. So two other regulations that we have on our radar is Reg 85. This one focuses on reducing the nutrients from the discharge that cause algae blooms and low oxygen in rivers. This is expected to push all wastewater plants towards nitrogen and phosphorus removal, which we don't currently have at the plant, to meet these kinds of regulations. Older plants were typically designed for secondary treatment, not this advanced nutrient removal. This was adopted in 2012 and it's currently in the monitoring phase, but it's expected to require numeric nutrient limits over time. The other one that we're looking at is Reg 31. That sets stricter water quality standards for rivers. It regulates DO, temperature, metals, nutrients, and other toxic pollutants. This one's already in effect as well, but it's periodically updated through rulemaking of the Colorado Water Quality Control Commission.
And can I ask, was the retrofit designed to meet these two?
Yes.
There was limits on reg 31, because that date keeps getting pushed further and further, like now it's like 2035 or whatever. But it was meant to meet most of those requirements, but not all. And that's where the footprint really became, it's, basically you add more membranes to the system to further treat. And that's where we wouldn't have that capability, with the existing footprint.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is Reg 31 is still at the state level we're unsure of what the limits are gonna be in the future, but Reg 85 is. pretty set
Yeah,
in stone.
so I'll jump in. I'm Brandon with SGM. Reg 85, go back real quick here.
Yeah.
Reg 85 was the initial shot for CDPHE to meet EPA requirements for nitrogen and phosphorus. That is a bridge basically to get to Reg 31, which is stream standards. And that's what, like Amy said, is going to have stricter limits. Basically for the nutrients, which is the nitrogen and the phosphorus segments, and they're gonna be real tough.
And that's where, there's a huge importance of not only at the town level, but we hire legal to help with some of these requirements coming in to fight them, because it's, I always say what it will do to smaller municipalities or even those who just finished building a brand new plant. For then Reg 31 to kick in, you just paid a bunch of money to build a new plant, now you have all these further restrictions. Right now, we have a group, helping us out at the state level to fight for this temperature requirement, because you talk temperature, it's, your river stream, what is the current temperature and what are their thresholds gonna be? It's 9 degrees Celsius acute temperature reading in the river, and if it exceeds that, then you have to physically cool what you're treating through the plant, which is then now you're talking about high usage of energy to lower the temperature through cooling towers. So it's, doing what we can to, obviously we want to think about the environmental impacts, but where it becomes just a high dollar amount to meet these expectations, we have that ability to comment and really fight that at the state level, to, not have to go above and beyond what, the pocketbook can really handle. So I encourage everyone to be a part of those conversations, and when we receive those, to make comments, but we do have a third party that's assisting to help us out with those regulations.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit more, what this means for the future of our wastewater plant planning project is that future nutrient limits are likely. The existing plant lacks capacity. Older plants were designed for secondary treatment, not this advanced nutrient removal. And that new modern plants are often designed with more flexibility. They have that BNR process, they have space for future treatment processes, and they have more advanced aeration and controls of the plant. So these numbers and values are the limits that we're hitting today under the existing permits, and this is what we think the future is gonna hold with these new regulations coming out. So when we start thinking about a new plant, new acreage, which I know Michelle and will speak to in a bit. There's some project drivers that we're thinking about. One is that despite it being 5 acres, it's still a limited footprint. So whatever we decide on the new lot, it still has to fit on a compact treatment, limited footprint. There's also high seasonal loading due to the tourism and peak flows. The cold climate makes it really hard for nutrient removal and it makes it more challenging. The above average in-stream temperatures that Kyle just mentioned may require cooling of the wastewater discharge. Also, the limited staffing and rising operating costs require systems to be more reliable and manageable. And then lastly, these future regulations require the advanced nutrient removal. So our design goal is to select a treatment technology with the designers that fits these site constraints, the regulatory constraints, as well as the operational capacity for the community. With that in mind, we have been looking at some technologies. The first one being that MBR, the membrane bioreactor. There's 2 types that we've been looking at. One's a flat plate, and the other one's a hollow fiber membrane. They both it's an activated sludge process that combines membrane filtration. Instead of these clarifiers that you'll see at our plant, the membranes physically separate the solids from the treated water. And we actually use these hollow fiber membranes at the drinking water plant. They're kind of the gold standard. If they can treat drinking water, they can most definitely drink or treat wastewater. However, these flat plate are more common for smaller wastewater plants. They have longer membrane life and lower maintenance. These hollow fiber ones, I can speak from experience, require a lot more chemicals and maintenance, and they're often shorter lifespans, but they are the gold standard. Advantages of membranes is there's a very small footprint, there's high effluent quality, and they're capable of very low nutrient removal limits, and they're well suited for future regulatory tightening. The challenges, like I mentioned, were their higher capital costs and operating costs. They require advanced screening at the front end of the plants. It's also proprietary equipment that needs to be replaced every 10 to 30 years, so that price to replace is not always guaranteed. The second technology that we're looking at, and this does not limit all the technologies, there's a couple that we have been identified that could work on a new wastewater site, is the active aerobic granular sludge, the AGS. One of these is the Aqua Narita, that I believe you'll be visiting soon, that uses dense microbial granules that remove nutrients in a single sequencing batch reactor. They look like this in their form, and they're essentially a ball of sludge that has an anoxic, aerobic, and anaerobic zones all within this in the sludge without having to create those zones in the oxidation ditches like we have at our plant. So advantages of this is it's a very small footprint as well. It uses deep basins. There's lower aeration energy costs. It also handles a high strength wastewater well, and it meets these new regs with filtration. The challenges is that it requires equalization tanks. It also is a proprietary technology, and it requires batch operation, which could be challenging with our seasonal fluctuations. So just some things to keep in mind. Now I'm gonna switch gears and we're gonna talk about what we've been doing at the existing plant to buy us some time while we make some decisions. Right now we've been working on our staffing. We have 6 dedicated wastewater staff now. This is we typically share this staff between water and wastewater, and right now we're trying to focus our wastewater staff just on the wastewater plant. So they're ensuring that daily operations and the biosolids are transported, and that all operations are managed by a skilled team. We have the ORC, the operator in responsible charge, 2 driver operators, and 3 lab techs operators. So beyond these core positions, we added a couple additional roles that could support the wastewater operation. One being the pretreatment coordinator, that is a shared position with Mountain Village. That person leads our fats, oils, and grease program, as well as our pre-treatment program in general. Another role that we just hired was the admin assistant. This is a shared role between water and wastewater, but it provides essential clerical duties and organizational support for our wastewater plant. Public Works also hired a project manager, and officially this is Public Works, manager, but this person has been actively helping manage our capital improvement projects at the plant, ensuring that they stay on track and within budget. So that's been huge for us. Some challenges that we have with vacancies still is that it took nearly a year to fill that pretreatment coordinator position. It was recently filled in 2026. But it was a long recruiting process. We still have one driver operator position open as well. So it is very challenging to find skilled operators that can live and survive in Telluride as well as work at the wastewater plant. So turnover and training is very real for us. We work hard at our plant to develop handbooks, tools, and training plans and other cross-training strategies to ensure that operations are smooth despite it having turnover at the plant. Some other challenges that we have are obviously the fats, oils, and grease at the plant. This is linked to a filament growth in the treatment process. The type of filaments that we have growing in the wastewater plant in the summer and the winter always is a type that really likes fog. And this causes a lot of issues. It decreases the oxygen demand. It puts our permit at risk. It also affects the settling and the clarifiers. So what we're seeing in our rod lift station are these balls of fog, and these have to be removed manually by staff. Because if they get sucked through the pumps, they could damage the pumps. When they do get sucked up to our headworks, this was just yesterday, it fills up the equipment. This is a bar screen and compactor, and it fills it up to the brim so much so that it can't push out any of the solids out of the system. This matters because not only is this wrecking our equipment, putting brand new equipment at risk of being damaged for full replacement, but the staff time that it takes to remove this is astronomical, and it's taken away from us treating wastewater. So what we're hoping is that this pre-treatment coordinator is gonna start working with all the restaurants and get us on a better path, get the restaurants to start maintaining their grease traps regularly. I can't ensure that this is going to be the solution, but it's a start. Like Kyle mentioned, we're still gonna have fog at the plant, so we're still looking at ways that we can manually remove it at the plant. But if we can start eliminating some of this at the source, it's going to improve our operations. Our long-term hope is that we're gonna start to decrease that BOD to something that's more manageable. So we're gonna get away from that 450 and hopefully like lower it a little bit.
Should there also be residential communication around not putting fog into the system?
Yeah, we can't regulate single family residents, but we can use public outreach. So we are working, that's our next step. First, we want to get the grease traps on a regular maintenance schedule, and then we're gonna start working on public outreach.
And you have in the past too, I mean, even in Lawson, where I've seen, they can grease down, or it's Thanksgiving, please be aware of the things you're putting down your sink. Yeah.
Yeah, and even through the building code side of things, and that's something as a community, if we want to make that and regulate it to be not allowing garbage disposals, cause I mean, I know how convenient they are. That stuff's not supposed to go down the drain. You're not supposed to chop up organics and send it down for it to be treated when you can just capture it at the sink and dump that in, your trash. And so things like that, we could regulate if we so choose to kind of help with the process.
Even awareness. Yeah.
When you highlight outdated and limited municipal codes, is that sort of what you're referring to there?
So thanks for bringing that up. So our enforcement with the pretreatment program is very limited because our municipal codes are limited and they're outdated. So we're working with a third party to upgrade our municipal codes to a very lengthy one that will give this pretreatment coordinator more teeth and more ability to enforce pre-trap.
Is there any way to link up with the health inspector to
Yes.
okay,
Traditionally, in the past, that's who managed the pretreatment program. And with all this fog in our plant, we decided that we needed to take that back. At least the enforcement of actually cleaning out.
I've had a lot of health inspections and never been asked about my
Yeah.
grease trap.
Right.
If
That was part of, and that was part of the
Yeah.
problem is, we would request assistance and we ended up going, to get help from the EPA on input just because of that, it was tough to get that assistance with our pretreatment, so we decided to take it back.
It would be nice, though, to continue to advocate the county, to just say this is a health issue too.
or if it like were to threaten your food permit, your commercial, it's like, if you're not cleaning it twice a year, then do you get a renewed like commercial?
It is interesting though, a lot of the grease traps installed in Telluride are much smaller than what you'd see in a regular city because of like constraints and
Mhm.
remodeling and whatnot. Which means they have to be pumped out more frequently. The feedback that we get from a lot of restaurant owners is that we're making it harder for them to conduct business here by making them pump out more. So we are trying to change the narrative around that and really work with customers so that they understand why we're doing this. Because ultimately, the rates of everyone is, for this wastewater treatment plant are gonna go up.
Mhm.
If we can get this under control.
Show that picture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Other operational challenges that we experience at the plant are HVAC and air exchange. We're working on, still upgrading them. We did a big upgrade in the office area, but many of the ventilation systems around the plant are still inoperable. We're working on, power infrastructure. The plant relies on an aging electrical system. So new projects, are straining the limited capacity already. There's a shared transformer on the lot. This plant, shares a transformer with other town facilities, so it's very vulnerable to frequent power outages at the plant. This increases the reliance on a backup systems and adds operational risk. The aging infrastructure that we talked about in the 2017 master plan are still an issue. As well as there's a lot of traffic and congestion on the shared access road, especially with Society Turn starting to come online. We are concerned with the heavy traffic and we want to make sure that our staff are safe as well as everyone else with this biosolids hauling. Speaking of biosolids hauling, we purchased a new sludge hauling truck. This truck hauls 20 yards per load. It used to only haul 6 or 7 in a trailer. So we reduced our transport time to Delta from 5 to 6 times a week to a maximum of 2 times per week. It's a significant time saving for staff and we are investing in we're looking in the cost benefit savings and carbon footprint of this currently.
But that's the position we're having trouble filling, is that
Yes.
correct? And is part of it because are requiring a CDL for a 2-time-a-week job?
Yes.
That seems to be a disconnect where you have a professional certification requirement, but it's only a very part-time job. I would perhaps look to creating some sort of efficiency there, because as a person who works with CDL drivers, they want a career, they don't want a part-time job if you have a CDL.
And I'll be clear, so it's a driver/operator role, so they're required to have the same certifications as everyone else, they're on call. We offer them the same certifications, same.
It's not part-time,
It's not-
Yeah.
Yeah,
full-time role.
Full-time
that
role.
requires the.
That's what I was trying to ask, thank you.
yeah, and then just for some clarity, prior to this truck, so this requires a B license. Where the previous operation was a truck and trailer,
With
that
that.
required an
Yeah.
A, which was harder to get an A, so
Yeah.
this helped out a little bit to
Yeah.
narrow that down, yeah.
In 2025, we completed an arc flash study. It cost about 75K. We felt this was really important for staff safety. The plant operates on high voltage electrical systems, 480. Arc flash is the potential for dangerous electrical explosion that can occur when working with this energized equipment. So this study, will guide the creation of an electrical safety plan this year. But we did put these warning stickers all over the equipment to protect staff and contractors when working with this older infrastructure. It was a big safety milestone for us. It was not something that was previously done. So this really clearly states the required PPE and the specific risks, ensuring that our staff and contractors are safe. In 2025, which just wrapped up recently, we invested in a secondary dewatering redundant unit. So this is what dewaters our sludge to create that biosolids that we take to Delta. In the past, we only had one unit, so we really needed to make this redundant. We identified this as a critical step into strengthening our solids processing system because that was our bottleneck. And so by adding this, the plant will gain much more flexibility in managing those biosolids, especially when paired with this biosolids truck. So it allows for larger, less frequent hauls to Delta. We also upgraded the impure system, so that takes water off of our discharge to San Miguel and reuses it throughout the plant in different processes like sprayers, and in the bar screens. So we are effectively reducing the demand of potable water. In 2026, we are working on finalizing a lab remodel as well as doing the membrane on the roof, because there was a lot of leaks in the office area. So this lab remodel project was really important to staff because it modernized our lab. We want to provide accurate data for the future planning of the wastewater plants. So it was really important to us to have a modern lab where our lab data could be more accurate and take a mental picture of what this lab looks like, because when you go to the plant today, it looks completely different.
And it was designed to be considered a mobile lab, so all the equipment that we just purchased isn't sacrificial, it can be moved to if we relocate.
I was hoping you could take this one.
Yeah, so I know everyone a lot of managers report updates. We mentioned about the sewer line rehabilitation program, which will continue in 2026. We have a few line segments that we have to complete. But we went through the entire system and we did a CCTV review, which is a robot that goes down the sewer. It assesses the existing infrastructure and where it finds infiltration or damaged pipe. We go in with this trenches technology and reline the pipe, extending the life expectancy of that pipe. So that internal pipe, that liner, can actually completely replace the host, where the host pipe can deteriorate and basically you have technically a brand new pipe that's installed within the existing host pipe. And so we'll complete that. We have one additional run out west that extends to the plant and then a few around town. But if you remember in 2024, we sent out that video of what the existing 18-inch sanitary sewer line from town to the plant looked like. It was reduced down to 6 inches. And we actually had to, we found a piece of mining equipment that we purchased to bore out all that material that was just piled up inside that pipe from. Somehow we got a 6-foot 2x4 out of there, so somehow that made it in there. Calculators, combs, you name it, it was all basically compacted in that pipe. So we remodeled that out, lined it, and so we'll basically have a seamless pipe, which will prevent, even from the beaver ponds, any of that infiltration from getting in. So we should see a huge benefit from not having to treat unnecessary water that's coming into the pipe. So it really helps with infiltration. Also doing the same thing with our manholes that we're seeing infiltration coming in. We've lined, I think, 22 to date, and then we'll do another probably 10 this year.
All in an effort to not treat groundwater.
Yes.
Another project that we're looking to begin in 2026 is the raw lift station rehab project. It currently has a filled HVAC system, a weakened primary header on the pumps. This is where all of the collection systems from both Mountain Village and Telluride collect and then gets pumped up to the headworks at the facility. And this is also where we remove fog, and it's particularly unsafe for staff. So a new design will allow for safer, easier removal of fog. It's gonna remove the failing infrastructure and restore a critical point in the raw sewage collection system. Yes,
Is this, oh,
I was gonna say, and a recently failed screen, right?
yes.
is this also something that will be part of a potential new system? John, about like
Yeah.
this will continue to be part of the overall system, even if we rebuild?
So that's what we're looking at right now. Regardless of if this goes down valley or gets pumped up to our facility, it still needs to be pumped. It's a low point. So we are trying to make this be flexible for whatever we choose to do in the future. But it is a point of failure right now, and we need to address it, without really knowing what we're gonna do in the future.
And you're absolutely right, like I call this the heart of the system, because if this fails, then none of this goes even to the process to get treated. So this will be really, continue to be a purpose, whether we do something with the existing location or if it's a new plant, that would not be a sacrificial, part of construction if we were to move forward with the new design.
And is this project, I see 500K and 6 million. What is the cost that we're looking at?
So we think that engineering alone is going to cost around 500K. But
Okay,
the actual construction is 6 million plus, because it is in the groundwater here. So if we dig in to build a new wet well, so there's a whole wet well underneath this building. If we do that, we're gonna have to dewater, which is very expensive. And it's going to drive the cost up, but we're also looking at relining the existing wet well and trying to rehab it. So that's kind of why the engineering is so much on it, because we have to find the best option.
And just to be abundantly clear, the point of failure for this lift station is primarily those fogs, that oil and grease, or is
Not-
there another element?
Not only that, so the primary header, the pipe that collects all the wastewater from the pumps and brings it up, that actually fell off the walls, a couple years before I started. So we had to emergency bypass this all night long. We emergency welded it back together, but we don't know how long that weld is gonna last. So we're trying to avoid a bypass pumping emergency situation, which is very costly.
And if it were to be like a failure during high peak, there's no way we would keep up with it, because there's not enough. You'd have to have 4 trailer mounted bypass pumps to even keep up, where when this occurred, as I understanding, it took 2 of those bypass pumps to keep up with that flow. And it was during off season, so.
And to answer your question, the fog is a problem in here. Going through all those pumps, it weakens the pumps. And then there's also a bar screen in the building, and that is no longer, the compactor is no longer working on that. So it could be because of the fog. We don't exactly know why, but
There's multiple issues. that
multiple
need to be
issues
addressed.
here. For the interest of time, I'm gonna skip through this. I just wanna mention that we're working on putting an RFQ that will allow our division to hire, to have a couple contractors, on call essentially, that can help tackle a bunch of projects all at once. These smaller projects, it's really hard for us to get qualified contractors and engineers to the western slope. So if we can bundle all these projects up and, while they're already out here, we're gonna save a lot of money.
A perfect example is we just went out to bid for a very necessary project for water, which had to do with the chlorination, and we got 0 bids. And so when we put several projects together, it'll help for us to be able to tackle some of these that people aren't interested in because they're too small.
I'm gonna skip through this slide and briefly touch on some of our key successes to why we're able to continue running the plant as it is. We have a lot of operational efficiency. We reduce the transport time of the biosolids. We're working on workforce growth. We're trying to get new operators trained up quickly. We have a lot of proactive planning now. We really worked on changing our division's vision. So we're going from a traditional reactive model to more of a proactive model. Where we're embracing proactive asset management instead of letting our equipment fail. We're working on safety first, like I mentioned, our flash study. We're also working on an annex to the emergency response plan. Like I said, we're protecting our assets, like we're engineering for this raw lift station to prevent future risks of failure. Cost savings is always on our mind, and like I said, we're working on that long-term vision with a pre-treatment coordinator to update our codes, reduce the plant stress and improve decision-making. And one thing I really wanted to mention that with that pre-treatment coordinator position, we're working on setting good habits for the future. Because whatever we decide in the future, we want to protect the new plant and our assets in the future, so we're trying to build positive habits in our community before we move forward. And then I also wanted to mention that none of this would be possible without this amazing team that we've built here. I've been working really hard with them to develop their expertise and really make sure that they're dedicated to this process and ensuring that we are successful. So I want to give them a big round of applause because they're really what makes this plant continue to run. So. Any questions?
Again, Kyle, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, huge kudos to Amy too for building this team. I agree. They are absolutely fantastic as people and for operating the plant. Just a good group, good vibes, good culture.
Are those poop people on the shirt?
Oh, God, no, these are tardigrades.
They're what?
They're water bears. They're the bugs that eat the poop.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's my
They
other.
make shit happen.
That's my last question.
Thank you. All right, we'll hand it over to Michelle and team.
You guys need a mental break first.
I could mention this.
A lot of information process.
Hey, give us a
Long
minute or
and
two.
sure.
It's all straight back.
Awesome.
You know, if you want to see some fully watering going on right now.
Yeah, you have to.
They're doing it at the Four Seasons. So it's pumped into these tanks and then through like these sucks and it goes into this vertical thing. And then trickles into the little Verano. It's pretty cool. Like, the technology has really over the past 10 years.
Thank you.
It's not just big tubes that go into
I'm gonna come up with that.
Yeah.
I don't have time to. Yeah, good for you. Personal tour.
That's good. Very good.
Do you have an estimate of when we might be heading out there?
This is only gonna be 10 minutes, this presentation part, and then we would just be standing for questions.
Okay.
It can be relatively. Not here.
Teddy, do you think you're gonna go to the plant?
Yeah.
Cool. So I think it's just gonna be Elena and Dan,
Okay.
so we won't even have four. So it's just for fun,
Yeah. Do we wanna try to reschedule this trip or just roll it? Okay.
cause I don't think Martin's planning going, and Teddy, you've already seen the plan.
I've been up, yeah.
So I don't know if you've.
Ashley's seen it.
Ashley has seen it.
We probably adjourn the
So
meeting.
Kristen's the only one that.
Yep.
I've only been out there for the haunted house, which is amazing.
How did I not know about that? It's for the best, it was, I don't know. They did a wastewater treatment plant haunted house.
Yeah, I missed it.
But I was like, but I think it was very staff, it was a staff camaraderie.
We kill the vibe, so yeah.
What Zoe is saying, I mean, I'm not.
Let's say, I said it.
But it was like,
I don't know
first time I
that
drank
either.
coffee, I think the second time I've ever drinking coffee in my life, right
boy.
before going to that haunted house.
Really?
Yeah, it was very bad.
So that helped the heart rate.
It was terrible. I was so on edge.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been in the evening, right?
No, it was.
Oh, it was in the morning, okay.
But it's so dark that you.
Yeah.
Is it 2 o'clock in the morning?
It was 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
But they're very good at being scary. How particular.
Do you have a character you play, Kyle?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I murdered someone in the clarifier.
Sledgehammer.
Yeah, disposing of the evidence right away.
Yeah, but I think I was singled out as someone that was easily scared, typically. You know, I'm usually that person in a haunted house anyway. For like, first time I had coffee.
Oh, that's great.
Coffee. You know, I just never did it. Like, you know, college is like when people are really, and I just never did it.
We need to hand out 5-hour interviews at the beginning and you have to take.
Yeah, I had to. Do it. I know someone gave me a yerba mate once also. It's terrible. I sweated, I was shaking.
Mm.
Oh,
Like caffeine and everything.
dude, it was Catherine. Catherine messed me up twice. That, she one time gave me a shot of a full thing of garlic and olive oil.
Gross.
Cute, right?
Yeah, why would she give that?
I think she was like, hey, I just read this is really good for you.
Yeah.
Here, try it. And I like took it.
You're like, okay.
Give me. Yeah. My husband does that to me a lot.
Yeah, doesn't he like feed you turmeric shots and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Matcha.
Yeah.
So another-
I do that stuff to myself, but I wouldn't like do it to someone else.
I forget, there was something, I was with really not feeling great once, and he was like, oh, here, try this supplement. And it made me so much worse. The whole drive home, I was like pulling over and puking. And then like we got home, he's like, yeah, it's because I gave you like 3 times as much of that supplement as I think I was supposed to.
Mm.
But sometimes he does.
All right then.
Filibuster enough.
I wanna just first do some introductions. We'll start with Scott.
Scott Binder, Public Works Director. Randy Bear, wastewater engineer for SGM, been working with both towns in some capacities, for wastewater planning.
And I'm Michelle Bolson. I'm the acting town manager of the town of Mountain Village. SDM has worked with us on alien related matters since probably 2022, first with the housing project. And then with this one, so we've kind of got a standing relationship with water and wastewater and civil, and they offer a whole suite of things. So in the interest of time, I won't walk through every element of this story map, but I feel like this is a good foundational document that kind of describes how it got here. And I only intend to talk for 10 minutes, and so then we're all open to questions on this. Brief introduction. Interestingly, with wastewater, this happens a lot. The first wastewater site was actually in Town Park, back in the mining era. And then it was lagoons behind the Shell station on the valley floor. And so in 1985, it was the Mountain Village Metro District and the town of Telluride agreed to build a plant at the current site, at Site 3. And it was the Mountain Village Metro District because we were a PUD under the county at that time. So planned development, we knew how big we were gonna be. And obviously, first we were a ski area before we were even a planned unit development. And the developers and ski area folks needed to sell land and provide water and wastewater and roads and things like that. And so that was really the genesis of the current site. And then this shows in proximity where the proposed site is of the land that we recently purchased. And just, you can always go back to this GIS agreement, but the series of agreements and amendments to that agreement, interestingly, in 1999, it was Telco that helped secure some, what do you call it, collateral, for lack of a better word, that secured this future expansion, with that federal funding.
Not to be confused with the coffee shop, right?
Yeah, not to be confused with the coffee, or maybe to be confused with the coffee shop.
Pretty new people, telco is.
I found it
Skiing golf
confusing when they
company.
called it Telco, but maybe they know that.
That was
That was the point. It was
Okay.
Gabe. So
Okay.
they were
yeah.
combined real estate and ski area company, and then they separated in the mid nineties, and that's why telco went away. It became a ski resort and then
Okay,
metro.
okay,
And he bought the URL,
And the
which
real
was like
estate
a
company.
big deal to him, so
Okay.
he wanted to use it.
okay. For those that remember any of this. And the town of Mountain Village, which is the iteration of, Metro now, pays 35% towards the operations. And then in 2012, we reached a certain population, and then we have this joint ownership of the plant at this point. And that 35% and all these documents, like I'm happy to, and I'm sure Kevin too, are happy to provide any documentation on the past. I'm not gonna focus too much on the past, but I think the past is important. That 35% that we pay was really based on the anticipated use of Mountain Village at full build out. And I don't think we're at 35% now, because we're not at full build out, but that's just something that's been referenced in the documents. I think that Amy was awesome at describing the current wastewater plant. It was constructed for 2.1 millions of gallons a day. It's about 3 miles from Telluride. It's on 3.24 acres, about 2.5 is usable. And I think where we're at now is really that when it was built in 1985, there were not all of these restrictive requirements around the BODs and the metals and things like that. And so we're sort of trying to catch up with these ever-changing requirements. And we don't really have a volume problem that, Amy and Calorie spoke to. It's really more about the technologies associated with treating those BODs. Current challenges were already reviewed. As these change, we can certainly amend this list, because we created this about a year ago, and there's been a lot of work with the current plant. One of our biggest challenges already touched on is the surge of visitors, up to 24,000 people into a really small valley with a really small baseline population. And then costs from 2017 to today have increased, and this is for the current plant. And a lot of our data and a lot of the work starts at 2017, because that's when that Stantec master plan was produced. That's when a lot of meetings started happening between electeds. I know Finn, who was the precursor to Scott, was part of a lot of these formative discussions around what are we gonna do next and when. I think this should be a cautionary tale for us that we look at once we figure out our solution. The cost of inaction is that this could have cost our region only like 30 to $40 million back in 2017. But for whatever reasons, we didn't take action at that time. And to Amy's point, it just felt like a lot when we got the estimates of $133 million to upgrade the plant with the incremental MGD to really only serve pursuant to the Stantec plan through 2047. That's a lot of money for the region. And it didn't seem like maybe the best solution in the moment. So, and then to the proposed site. So we've purchased the land now. We purchased it for $1.1 million. And I don't know if everybody feels this way, but this was important to me that we had a willing landowner and a feasible site. And my background's in land use, and sometimes I know how hard or how easy land acquisition can be. And some of the informal conversations we had around expanding land area or things closer or bigger were going to be monumental in terms of either PUD amendments or condemnation. I don't think anybody really wanted to see much longer protracted processes. So I'm just giving you a little insight into why this conversation with the Alexanders happened for this particular site. So this gives you a sense of the land area. It's 5 acres, about 3.7 is buildable. This is CDOT and county shops. It's zoned appropriately. It's on the river. It will have access from Highway 145, which we don't have the access permit for that. That's basically gonna be in this area. There's an old mining road, kind of see in here. Lot of wetlands, and that sort of thing down here. There's floodplain on the property, but the good side, the upside for a wastewater treatment plant is you can build in a floodplain. You just can't really do habitable space. You guys are more familiar with that in Telluride than we are with your historic basements and things like that. See, this just gives you some angled, technically savvy angled views that I could never do. The housing parcels up here. Let's see, I don't really need to go into the entitlements, but it took a long time. And a lot of it is that we were dealing with some mining properties hadn't been platted. We had a historic railroad grade in there. We also wanted to solve some other issues which related to the intersection, which didn't need to be managed through this, but there's some land that, to the extent an intersection is improved, that land will be then given to the county for that improvement. The railroad grade was also right in the middle of the current Alexander cattle operations, and so we all change over time, electeds and governments, and it better assure the continuity of use for their ranching operations for however many generations they choose to do that. And some of the values that we saw in this possibility is that the current plant can continue to operate while a new plant's being constructed. Having sat through a lot of those Corello meetings, I was getting a little nervous around what could go wrong when you're in the middle of construction around a current site that's older. And knowing it was already $133 million, not understanding how much higher that could go, because we are really at an early conceptual state with the cost estimates, felt like an over-under that maybe we weren't really willing to explore. And we did some preliminary, we, meaning Brandon, did some preliminary cost estimates for a new site. And at the time, I think that was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe it was like a range of $90 to $130 million. It still costs a lot of money, but we would have state-of-the-art technology. We wouldn't have to retrofit a plant. And we could also, and all of this will be in the future, but build the plant we need plus 10 years and have expansion capacity for any future growth within limits. And the way that we were doing our diligence before buying the land was really supporting moderate regional growth. We looked at it from what could be gravity fed, and we looked at it from a regional perspective. So it was the build out of Telluride, the build out of Mountain Village. But then, even though in my mind, I think ski ranches would never in a million years join up to a regional wastewater plant, it still might be the right thing for them to do 40 years from now, because they have some uniquely sized properties. They may be non-conforming over time. They're all on septics and leach fields. We wanted to, from an environmental perspective, consider what a regional plant looked like for those existing subdivisions that are primarily in San Miguel County. This might be a better choice for them, and it might be a better choice from an environmental perspective for the region. And this is a map of our existing service area. So the plant does serve by contract places like El Tesoro, Lawson Hill. There's a contract with Genesee Properties, although it's obviously not constructed yet. Some things on the north side of Highway 145. And the way this plant was originally envisioned, it's like we all dealt with our distribution lines, like our collection systems. So Mountain Village, Scott's team manages in that Mountain Village. Telluride manages theirs. I don't know does El Tesoro, do they manage their own systems that flow in, or do you guys have to go out there?
We have to manage it.
You manage it.
I can check.
We have the right, I'm not sure if we actually pays the cost.
For maintaining the sewer, like, we do the CCTV, jetting.
Okay, so it's two a little different.
Yeah.
And then we would envision, so we also walked the line that we believe would make the most sense down to this property. And we would like to pick up Ilium Valley as well. The line would flow through there. We have utility easements to the Alexander property for this.
That envisioned to be sort of along the Galloping Goose line to that water storage tank there, sort of along that similar line. I see Scott nodding, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How do you know that?
Just an
A lot of people
assumption.
don't have that kind of spatial memory.
Just kind of,
Like
just
me.
kind of a mental map of where it would make sense to go.
My you're also,
There's only, I mean, yeah, coming down from the plant, there's only a few areas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause there's a cliff band there that you would, yeah.
yeah, that's right. I don't know if I have much more to say about that. And then we
I'll
just,
also just add the one, because it's not on your story map, but
Yeah.
it is within our authority documents that we do encompass our Diamond Ridge property within a lot of our.
Yeah.
consensus.
yeah. Another thing that Brandon produced that we're happy to share is how we derived this idea of 2.6 MGD for a regional plant. You know, SGM's done a lot of the water, wastewater around here, and we did they did calculations for ski ranches, for example. Last dollars on a package plant, which is like a low technology way to manage waste, and then that waste has traditionally gone to our treatment plant. Same with Ilium. So anyway, and then all the local folks that kind of worked on this for surveying, the Hazens did wetland stuff, geotech analysis, environmental assessments. And you don't need to know how much money we've been spending.
And I'll
on
point
Ilium.
out, just to add
Yeah.
on what Michelle's saying there, all of that stuff you have to have when you go to the state to develop, like geotech reports,
Yeah.
wetlands. When you go to apply to CDPHE for a new wastewater treatment plant and a new site, you have to have all this information anyway. So it was done in conjunction with that, thinking that this was gonna go ahead and move forward with the plant.
Right.
So some of those steps have already.
We tried to identify any barriers to success really early on. We had time before we went under contract, and then we've had 2 years in the meantime, which is way longer than I ever wanted it to be. And then to Zoe's point, and this was before my involvement, but there were definitely discussions around the sewer authority. We think it's the best path forward. It's its own entity. And so the entity can apply for grant funds and loans, and it felt like it's not like a tax base where everybody gets taxed, it's user based. And it felt like also it would unburden the towns from carrying debts on a new plant, because we know the towns have their own water infrastructure needs, gondola needs. Like, we have a lot of catch up over the past 20 to 30 years of rapid development. That will take resources, and so this was one thing that seemed like a better way to go with this. And anyway, there's just some language in here around the benefits of that, and you don't need to know communications timeline because it's really long. That's it. So I'm happy to stand for questions.
And sorry, just,
I have a question.
Yeah.
The retrofit from 2022 from Carollo, that was a retrofit estimate for 133 mil. So just roughly looking at that, going down the gorge or across the Goose, are we talking double that for a new plant? I mean, for price wise.
So when they do, the estimate for the 90 to 130 was a couple years ago, and that was strictly for the plant. We're not talking about the pipe,
No.
We also,
Right.
but we also have,
just piping for Mountain Village.
we have we have piping down, we have estimates for piping down.
Down to the new
From the
site.
current plant.
Yes,
And that
To the
encompasses
new
the
site.
90, 130.
that's another
estimate.
10.
That was another 10.
Okay.
Again, a couple of years ago. So
Mhm.
part of the next phase. So where we are, there's a lot of next steps. So we're still in conversations around the authority document, as we are still, there's a number of items, that we're working on agreements on. The authority document isn't necessarily strictly the next step that we have to complete to keep moving forward for the new plant. Engineering and design is a very important next step to understand where we are. Feasibility has been accomplished, so now that is what we need to see is what does this new plant look like? We have been accomplishing testing at that new site to see what potentials of technology and things like that could be at the new site, so we can determine what engineering design we have. Once we have that, then we know how much it will cost. That is a huge piece of this puzzle. And I think we are all very dedicated to moving forward on that next step, very soon, right now.
And I think I'll just one thing. From what the Brandon and Brandon can speak to this, but I don't know that we know yet whether the current site needs to be used at all if we have a future site. So I think that that's undetermined. I wouldn't say that it 100% needs to be. I think we talked about scenarios just internally where it probably doesn't need to be.
Yeah, just some thoughts that we've talked about, and Kyle and Amy have been in some of the discussions too, is that you could potentially, the layouts, the preliminary layouts that we've done on the site down the new site, we have everything there, digesters, aeration basins, headworks, all that stuff down at the new site. There wouldn't be a need for anything up above. We talked about biosolids maybe, but we've initially looked at having everything on site. There's only, like Amy mentioned before, there's only a couple technologies on smaller compact footprints that will fit, and those are membranes. Marie is another one. I know a couple of you, Teddy, I'm sorry, and Zoe, we're going to Montana here in a couple of weeks to look at the AGS. So that you guys can ask any operators, Corey and Tyler as well. So that you guys can ask questions. The reason, just to give you a little background, the reason for Montana, very similar size, they're a 2 million gallons per day facility. Cold weather, their basins sit outside. Now we probably want to do that here, it would all be indoors. Nutrient requirements, they have a limit of 8 total nitrogen and I think it's 0.7 for phosphorus. So very similar to what we would see from the state health department coming down. Similar resort-ish location, obviously in Whitefish, so all of that just lends to similar application.
When was it constructed?
That was constructed it was finished in 2021. We started construction in early, I'll say late 19. So a couple years construction.
And then what was the final cost? Do we know?
I don't know that. I'm trying to get that.
Is that?
Yeah, I don't have that number. Obviously, it's gonna be similar to what we were saying a couple years ago. Back when 2017, when those estimates, I'm guessing that it's probably somewhere in that 30-ish range, but I don't know that for sure. They converted a lagoon into a mechanical plant.
On communications, it was a surprising thing to me this week to see from the public pushback on the proposed location for it, specifically in regards to connection to the river or potential wetlands issues. I think there is a general misunderstanding, at least some in the public, that the vast majority of wastewater treatment plants are directly located on a river, and making sure that that element is well known will be one of the challenges in front of us, apparently, which was a surprise to me.
I reached out to one person that I knew well, who's also not official, and she apologized and said she hadn't actually even read the article. And I also said to her, like the existing location is better, the entrance to our community, you know, so it's hard, we all know, like, we don't even need to go there, that everything that is said these days comes with a certain amount of criticism, whether they live in our community or don't live in our community, and it's tiring, but like, we still have to try to do the right thing whenever we feel like that thing is. Yeah. But yes, I was painfully aware.
Somebody actually responded to it, but.
Is this on Facebook?
Yeah. And you like linked the story.
Like, what? It's like, because it has to be.
Cause that's where they go, that's what you do.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I mean, another thing about it is it's not near any residential uses, and I have reached out to Mr. Price, who lives on the Mesa, and some folks in Deep Creek to just make them aware that this is going. They've been a little, like, they've been very vocal at county meetings, and it's just like, this is what we're doing, and, you know, so as long as we keep people informed, and involved, I think we'll be. But I mean, it's the best we can do, and people appreciate being proactive around those communications. So anyway, we are all available to you whenever, just ask questions. You have our contacts. The story map's on our website. If you want the MGD study, we can distribute it to all of you guys. I don't know, Kevin, if you already have it. It's just been a working document. To talk about what our anticipated regional needs are.
When did that happen? For a while.
That was like fall.
Say the last revision, we'll say was fall, when we were, I believe, when we sent it.
Yeah, I think so, right.
Kyle Hayden had it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of technical data, like I don't blame you if you wanna have a nap right now, because this is just, that's how my brain is.
So is there a rough timeline on next steps? I know you said next steps.
We're meeting tomorrow, like we continue to work through this and, you know, our goal is to have a new plant within the next 5 to 7 years. The new parcel has a certain timeline associated with it, that a new plant, a shovel in the ground needs to occur within the next 10 years with a potential extension of 15. 5 additional years for 15 total. But as we all know, you know, through Amy's presentation, we just need to continue to put our best foot forward for
I
data.
really think these CDPHE requirements should be driving it, and it's nice they let up a little bit. I think it was 2027 before, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
And then
Which
goes into 2030.
Which was gonna be a real problem for all of us. So that maybe gives us a little bit of grace, because this is like a snail's pace. Like,
Yeah, it will still, just from, speaking from a design standpoint, design and permitting for facility, it doesn't matter if it's us or some other engineer, it's probably 2 to 2.5 years for that. Then it's another 2 to 2.5 years for construction. So that's the time frame that you're dealing with, regardless of whenever the decision is made to go.
Again, that's why we're gonna put so much. Everybody in this room has done so much work, so Amy and her team for our current plant and all the work that they're doing with their community.
Thank you.
And our plant right now, sustaining that and making that in its best abilities, and this team for the work on the new land and all of us working together. So it really like, this collaboration is something to be very proud of in what everyone is doing.
Yeah, and we appreciate, I mean, they can do their jobs when they have your support.
Yeah.
So this kind of awareness is really important for all of us, and your team's been amazing to work with. I wanna thank all of you. And I mean, and I'm grateful to have Brandon and Scott too, but like a lot of really good brains in the room. So Derek, you can keep them. Right.
All right, with no more questions, then, since we don't have a quorum, Kevin, should we adjourn the meeting?
All right, we will adjourn by mutual consent.
Thank you.
Alana, Zoe, you guys, if you